and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we will now turn the meeting over to Jean Michael, Chair of the Zoning Revision Committee.
All right, so from where we left off, July 29th, which was our last meeting, we had touched on 250-72, 75, 76, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, and 93 is where we left it off. So do we have to go back and discuss any of those changes that we made back then? So steep slopes was 72.
I'll be honest, I looked through it today, but knowing that it was months ago, I looked at all of our changes and didn't quite know exactly why we did everything, but I trusted our judgment from that time, so I have no comment on it.
Okay. And 75?
You good? I know in 75, Ian said that he would come back with suggestions for combining C and D. I don't know if we ever did that.
Who regulates roadside stands? Who makes sure that they all have,
Well, I mean, they're permitted, so it would be the building
That's the-
inspector,
the
but
building inspector gets
regulate,
the permit?
it would be the zoning enforcement officer to make sure that the signs are to the standards of whatever the zoning law says.
all right, thank you. I realize that's not what we're doing today.
So anything on 75 or 76 or 78? I mean, 76, you said that we should come back.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. It says come back when definitions are fixed, I wrote.
I think we just wanted to make sure that,
That this
definitions
matched with
matched.
the definitions.
yeah.
Yeah,
And you said we're doing definitions last, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
One
'cause-
thing I still have a problem with, and I know I got outvoted then, is the acreage. I know that got changed years ago on there, was to make it twice. Just trying to have a little bit, we have more families having, coming back in here, they're having, the mother-daughter or whatever scenarios, they're coming back and having something on there, but it, I think it's still way too restrictive. Two-family dwelling should require twice the acreage specified. I think it should be with having it less with going with the proper variance and with the on there.
I think one of the ways that we can fix that when it comes to like mother-daughter type things is we can, and I know several of us have talked about passing a law about eco housing, which would be a temporary thing for like aging parents or something to live, and then that structure would be removed after.
I know, but I mean, you're talking, the other facet, I think is too restrictive. Then you have someone that has like 125 acres, and then, I also feel, which is not part of this part, but it was, that, they can only have 3 accessory dwellings on a property that big too. So I mean, there's two extremes that there needs to be some sort of wording. We're not at that, dealing with that one, but it's too extreme to just use it as an example, too restrictive on certain things. I'm not saying for all applications, they might have to meet a certain code,
I believe in the comprehensive plan, it talks about that in the hamlets, the rules could and should be different and allow for more low-cost housing, which would possibly address what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
You know, part of the town, we got the hamlet, which is smaller, and then we have 3 acre, and then we have 5 acre. So,
I think-
maybe 1.5 times on certain cases, there might, you know, to me is something more feasible, 1.5 times to have a certain amount of square footage, maximum amount of square footage. You know, we do have an accessory apartment in there, which is limited to 1/3 of the square footage or not to exceed, was it, I forget, was it 1,000 or 800 square feet?
Not to exceed 1,000 square feet.
Yeah. It's been a while since I got that.
So I think there's kind of like two dynamics in a sense that I've always said, what is it that we're trying to restrict? What is the problem that we're trying to fight? And I think with everything, it's always noise and traffic and disturbance to your neighbor. So obviously, if you have 50 acres, there's probably going to be less disturbance to your neighbors. The traffic still may be an issue on the road, but as far as disturbance to your neighbors, as far as having, you know, an extra house or an extra two-family or something like that. But when it comes to the two-family itself, I mean, it's really more of to me, a Board of a Health issue as far as your septic and your well use.
But see, that would
But
be
that
more-
would not make too much of a difference if it was a four-bedroom
That's correct.
house versus two-bedroom houses. It's still 4 bedrooms. I mean,
that would be one of the requirements to do something on there. It would have to meet Board of Health approval no matter what.
Mhm.
So if you can't do it, you can't do a placement with the wells and, you know, have your 100-foot setback, you know, from well to septic or anything else. That would get kind of verified right in there, right off the bat.
yeah, because the septic pad on a 4-bedroom, typically in this area because of the soil composition is mostly clay around here, you typically are going to face something that's at least 50 feet wide and 100 feet long. So, I mean, there's a half an acre right there almost.
Yeah, there's different systems. I've seen,
And you have to be 100 to 200, feet from the well to the septic,
Yeah.
and then you got to have a house in between. So there's going to be a limitation as to the
Sure.
the
And that-
lot
But
size.
if you can meet those limitations and, you know, again, going through a variance, because here's the problem. And we've been, you know, the purpose of this, obviously, we set a set zoning law, and then we open up to, you know, people to try to go and get a variance, right? That's, you know, for anything that's not allowed. We've all been, you know, or most of us understand how that works. The problem is there's a lot of precedents that's always set. So even when I spent my time for the 2.5 years on the zoning board, even though there may be a reasonable or, you know, have a self-created problem to give a variance, it comes back at the end of the day saying, hey, you know what? If we set this one, we're going to set something for everyone, and then for there, they don't ever approve anything. I have enough cases that I've been a part of to say that. So then we see some of the bigger properties that go for a variance, that needs to go for a variance that doesn't fit in there. Okay, but they got the property, so we can kind of do this, we can allow that, and it's kind of discriminatory almost a little bit on that. So, you know, I think in all cases, just because if it goes for a variance and someone can set and say, hey, I can meet the well requirement, I can meet the septic requirement, I can meet all the setbacks off the property lines where it's not, you know, affecting my neighbor, I got my 50-foot side setbacks, my 100-foot from the road, and my rear setbacks. I think it's too restrictive in most cases. And yes, in the comprehensive plan, there was set, going back many years ago, to have a little bit more economical housing for feasibility. And we do see more and more, and as the economy's going up again, you know, as the economy's having high inflation and everything else, we are starting to see people, because of the pandemic, kind of get a little bit closer. Now we're going to start seeing with the getting close to another recession. It's going to happen. And, you know, I
So
just,
here's something I want to pose. I mean, because from what I've seen is there's a lack of inventory of rentals. And that's, I think, been brought on by two things. One is more people are living here full-time versus using it as a temporary place. But two is the Airbnbs. And I think most of the rental inventory has gone Airbnb, one, because of the law is not even allowing for, evicting people. It's easier just to do an Airbnb, and at least this way you know you got your money. But you can also get a lot more money doing Airbnb. So someone says, well, I want to put up a two-family house, and their intent is really be a hosted Airbnb because they know they can get more money out of it.
Yeah, but you can't.
Where's the benefit of
Dean,
providing more rental?
Yeah, but Dean, you can't base.
Oh, I know.
That's the wrong way. We agree on a lot of stuff, but that fundamental behavior is kind of like, well, I don't want to allow this here because for the potential of something happening, that's discriminatory right off the bat.
Well, and that's the zoning.
And just because we're trying.
Oh, I'm not
to
saying
we can't-
one way or the other. I'm posing that out there.
As a fair, reasonable thing. We do have a short-term rental law that we have set guidelines for that. If they meet the requirements and the planning board requirements and zoning requirements, that they would get approved for that. But, like I said, I don't know if I'm barking up a dead tree here, but, it's something I've been saying for a long time. And likewise, even for going for someone that has a, 50-acre piece of property and only having 3 accessory buildings, so I've had a lot of constituents say to me, Chris, this is, we can spread out into the woods and no one ever see anything on here to have, unless we list it as a farm or we go to make our property a farm or have an ag event center, which we wrote that law too, to deal with.
I would say, and I see your concerns, but I feel like it's a situation where we would put ourselves, where we're trying to write a code that will address every single situation, and I feel like we get in trouble when we do that. And that's why I think, and you take the opposite view, but that's why I think the variance system is what would work.
And that's what I'm saying, if that was the case, that when I sat down, who else, I know Dean was on the zoning board at one point. All right, Elliot was on the zoning board at one point.
Well, you were on planning.
Planning, all right, I'm sorry, yeah. So, in things, it really comes down to zoning board, because the zoning board is the one who can override whatever goes on. And it's been my experience, when someone comes in with a reasonable ask that meets all the requirements, that we've sat down, I kept all my caseload on there, that met all the requirements, Board of Health requirements, right down to septic, setbacks, not asking for a separate setback or anything else, that they got denied every time. And I think, and so when you have and someone at one point that was on the zoning board, because I got in a big argument with this person a while back, and they said, well, geez, you're coming in for a variance, it doesn't allow it into the code here. And I said to the person, I says, you've been on this board a long time, and I says, the whole purpose of having a ZBA, it's called the Zoning Board of Appeals, to be able to grant something. And then the scenario is, well, if we do this for this one person and they meet all the requirements, it sets case law that it can go for someone else to do it. And you can't approve one variance for someone and then say on that same thing, each one's case by case, and then, go a different way. It's not like you're asking for a change of use of property. That's usually very difficult in the zoning. To get a change of use on the property. This is residential. We're not talking commercial use. But, whatever. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. I have no intention of doing anything. But I just think from speaking to some of the constituents and stuff like that, have some more piece of property that they feel, because at one point it allowed it, and several years back it got changed, and people now are saying it's too restrictive. Ross, I see you want to say something.
You want us to announce ourselves and everything?
Sure.
Russ Tompkins, Shellsville. Major pain in the ass. Along Chris's line of thinking, I can see that you should not necessarily require twice the acreage if it's going to be in the same building. If you've got 2 different houses on the property, I can see need for more land. But if you've got it in the same building, you're going to be using the same septic system. You're not going to have 2 wells. You're not going to have 2 septic systems. I think maybe some consideration should be given to a 2-family dwelling And my thought is maybe 1.5 times the size required in that area. I also think that if you're gonna have 2 houses on a 5-acre parcel, it's feasible that you could have more than enough room for the 2 houses to be comfortably sitting on it. So then I wonder if you really need double the acreage if you have 2 houses on a 5-acre parcel. Maybe you might, you need 2 houses, obviously, if you're gonna be in a 1-acre zone in a hamlet, you need probably 2 acres there. But like I say, I think for a 2-family in a single building, maybe you should consider using 1.5 times the lot size required in that area. And for 2, I guess you have to decide what way you'd want to go with that. But I think in a 5-acre zone, that I don't think you should have to have 10 acres to have a second dwelling on it. And I don't know how you'd word that all out. It's kind of like the cat got in a ball of yarn.
I mean, one suggestion, following your idea, Russ, is, and I was thinking about this too, is that with the 3-acre zoning, to have 6 is probably okay, but in a 5-acre zoning, to have 10 may be a little bit more restrictive. So if you say 2 times the acreage for the first 3 acres, or 1.5 if you have 5 or more acres,
I think it's discriminatory. And I do agree with what Russ said on the one part, that maybe the solution is if it's within the same dwelling in the same building, and you're not having 2 separate systems, because then the setbacks, it still can be in there, because what are we talking?
well, you could have 2 buildings and still be on the same septic and well.
Technically, yes, but I'm saying if we're looking at footprint, overall footprint, spreading apart and being able to make the spacing, then, having it within the same dwelling, maybe 1.5, and then at that point, maybe having, if you're looking at 2, then 2 separate houses, then maybe that would be the caveat to have it as a double. At least it gives a little bit of a thing, so if someone did something, gives a little bit of a.
Just so we move it along,
There's an issue, let me throw one thing out that we haven't talked about. And I think what's behind this, or at least what was behind this to a great extent, was the issue of density, population density. And one way to limit population density, if that's your intent, is to have double the acreage.
No, that's fine. And the problem is every year we agree to the community development grants. And part of the community development grants, if you read in the language, it does say that we have to provide for low-income housing.
That's correct.
And there's no way to provide low-income housing when you have a 5 or 10 acre, requirement for land. That's part of the problem. So you have you're either going to try to provide some type of low-income housing, or you have to make some type of accommodation on the other way. So it's kind of like both. But what I was going to say is, I think we could argue about this all night long. What I would suggest is, if you want to make a change, come up with a change so that we can review it and make a decision.
Well, I'm fine with, we just put in the wording with what Russ said. I think it makes it kind of, if you're not making a huge footprint, the 1.5 times for if it's built within the same dwelling, because we're not having to, spreading it closer to the setbacks. We're keeping to the setbacks inside there. And then if it's 2 separate dwellings, then I'd say at that point, I would word it as, basically, twice the acreage, but with, give some sort of language that you can come in for a zoning board of appeals for being certain.
But Dean's asking, why don't you detail that out, and then we can talk about it next time.
And I
so
would
we have
also
it
say,
in print.
the part we're talking about says a 2-family dwelling. It doesn't say an accessory dwelling.
Yeah.
No. The difference of an accessory dwelling, like an accessory apartment,
Yeah.
is it's limited by the square footage being no more than 1/3 of the existing dwelling space.
I guess what I'm just saying is, it's
on
not
it.
saying anything about a separate building. It says a 2-family dwelling. This means 1 building.
This section is only about 2-family dwellings. That's what Michael's
Yeah.
saying. So that's all we're addressing right now.
Yeah.
I would love to know, which really probably doesn't have that much bearing on how we proceed necessarily, because we're really looking forward, but I'd also love to know how many variances were granted.
None. None that the 2.5 years that I was on the board, none.
20 years on the planning board.
How many were asked for?
I had at least 3 that I can go back and I can pull the caseload up on.
I'm wondering, like,
Yeah.
I want to get a read on how much of an issue is it for currently?
No, but the thing, so I mean, if we're just talking two-family dwelling and it's as one single building with two-family dwelling, and we do have them in town, right up on Clinton, actually we got 2 right down here and we got.
9
2
partners there,
over-
so.
Well, and I'm just talking on between Center Road and Clinton Hollow Road. Then I would just say at that point, just going to 1.5. Long, 1.5 acre for that.
Oh, bring
Or
it.
I'm sorry, not 1.5, 1.5 times would be the right terms. And we're not rewriting and making major changes on it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I confused accessory with two-family.
Yeah, but I did too, and I apologize for that too.
What's next?
It's really, well, it's, we're going down.
Catherine, on 2 terms on the planning board, we had 2 people come in wanting to build a 2-family dwelling.
2-family dwellings
2 in 14 years.
in 14, okay, so it's not a,
No.
So it's not like a pressing issue.
It's not a, but it's not.
well, I
it's
think
good
to have
the
the-
community development piece is a good point, but I was just
That's
curious
correct.
how many, thank you, that's, I
At
think
the
that's
risk of
useful.
sounding heartless, which I'm not trying to do, I also don't think we should be changing our zoning code with the intent of trying to get more grant money. You know what I mean?
That's not what Dean said.
Yeah, and it isn't what he said.
If we
And I
read
know
the
that. I
fine
was just
print,
afraid it would come
we're
across that
accepting
way.
some
Right,
certain
no.
terms, but the whole thing was, with our comprehensive plan, was to provide for
Yes,
some more economical
Yeah.
housing,
yes.
'Cause if-
right? And everything that we've done for the past several years that I've been on the zoning revision committee has not addressed that part of the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Right.
And this one piece would. So really, one special, just require 1.5 the acreage specified in the district scheduled. Or we might have to, I mean, the only thing that would be a problem, and just for Board of Health issues, would be in the historic district, or, on that side of, in the the hamlets, because it would have to meet the set Board of Health approval. And if they could do that, and they could meet the, the right tank, the right fields and the well distances, then there's no reason why it shouldn't be.
I think part of this too is where I wrote, come back when definitions are fixed. In the definitions under dwelling, we have dwelling unit, dwelling single family, dwelling 2-family, dwelling multifamily, and townhouse, and I wrote a note. And these are all new. And I did write the note that these need to be fixed. So I don't know what we had.
Right,
The problem is, then we go back to that 1 acre, 3 acre, 5 acre, and hamlet zoning. So by your definition of 1.5, if someone was in a hamlet, they could have just 1.5 times the,
If they can meet because this is one building, right? That's what we just identified. It's not 2 separate buildings.
Yes.
So it would have to meet the setback requirements for that district, right? That's the first thing, which is no matter what, you gotta have the setbacks or it's gonna trigger a variance. 2, it's gotta meet the Board of Health approval process, so for the well or the septic. And if they can't do that, even on a 5 acre piece, and say you got wetlands in the property and you can't meet those requirements to make, so you're having two bedroom houses, two bedroom units in there, that's 4 bedrooms, that's a 1,250 gallon septic tank with X amount of field, depending on, but it also deals with, like you said, the perk test with if it's clay or sand, and almost everything now needs fill anyway. With something, but there are ways to be engineered around. I mean, this is what I do for a living. So, I think it's gonna be triggered, it's gotta meet those requirements, and if it doesn't, and you're in a wetland, you gotta get a wetland permit, right? So there's already stopgap measures to protect these things from happening. Now, 2 separate houses, I agree. I think there's gonna be, just because there's setback issues, someone might wanna get a variance for, instead of 50 acres, be 25 acres off, 25 feet off the, property line. There's lighting issues that might go into the other neighbor's property.
I mean, there's one up on Old Bull's Head, or 2 1,400 square foot raised ranches connected by a roof line. There's at least a 20-foot gap in between the buildings.
Well, you wanna know something? Town of Poughkeepsie made changes on doing stuff like that now. They say, you know, in some of the stuff that you can't have it connected, that doesn't count as a single dwelling. It used to, but they made some changes on stuff that I've seen.
What do you got, Mr. Tompkins?
Yeah, I was just looking at it and I'm saying, you got a two-family, you got a house and they want to convert it to a two-family. Now, you also have the term accessory dwelling unit. I mean, if you put an accessory dwelling unit in a house that's existing, you make it a two-family house, if I'm thinking along the right way.
Where's the definition?
And I know that you
Well, the
have-
accessory limits the square footage, Russ.
yeah,
So if you wanted to make the house even on side, you know, 2 and 2, say 2 bedroom, and you had, say, 1,500 square foot on one side, 1,500 on the other, you couldn't do that with an accessory dwelling. It's limited by whatever's more restrictive, either a third of the actual existing footprint without building. And if you go right by the book, if I remember right, it's been a long time since I looked at that section. If you go, it's the existing footprint without building on to change that, to make that square footage. And then you gotta have a minimum square footage of space
but
by the Board of Health.
follow me here. If you turn around and want to have a two-family dwelling,
Yep,
you're not limited on the size like with the accessory.
yep.
And we turn around and say that you can do it on 1.5 times the required acreage in the area. But then you turn around and you still got the section on accessory dwelling units that says you gotta be 2 times. And the accessory dwelling unit theoretically could be a lot smaller than the second family dwelling. You kinda, I think, open up a bag of worms there, you know?
Well, the accessory dwelling, anyone can have an accessory apartment in their house if it meets a third of the space or no more than
But if I
1,000.
remember correctly, if you have an accessory dwelling unit in the house, you need double the
Double the
acreage.
acreage.
No, not for, if you're meeting the minimum, you know, like a mother-daughter or whatever on there, I don't think you have to meet that requirement. You can have an accessory, as long as it's no more than 1,000 square feet or a third of the
Well,
existing
we just had
footprint.
one up on Mountain View, and I seem to recall that they were converting a building to be a accessory dwelling unit. And
Now,
one of the things,
accessory meaning in like a barn?
they were converting a separate building to be.
That's different. I'm talking inside your footprint of your house. Accessory, I know, that's another issue that I also feel, because you can have, you know, but that's.
And they had to have twice the required
That's
acreage
correct.
for that section.
That's correct.
So-
That's the way it's written out.
You
You're
turn
correct.
around and allowing even if it's in the house, I believe you gotta have double the size. I'm not
No,
sure.
you don't.
Okay, well, I'll sit down.
Yeah. No.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Katerina Maxianova, Deer Hill Road. Just something to consider for the board. I know that the intent is to create more affordable housing, and that's a great intent. I just wonder if there's a possibility for unintended consequences, and instead of doing that, people will start building investment properties. And, you know, I know we're going to be talking about STRs probably at some point, but thinking through, you know, how this could lead to additional investment properties and people building more units to be rented to vacationers.
Yeah,
We
I
already talked
brought
about
that
that.
up.
Yeah, we already discussed that,
Okay.
and how do you handle that, and can you really zone for things that people will do that are against the law anyway, so, but it's on our minds.
But as far as rental properties for short-term rentals,
Yeah,
that we do have the law that we wrote, you know, that we finished up last year regarding, so that specifies, you know, how many you can have, and if it's occupied or not occupied.
I would say too, one of the things about short-term rental law is that it's not actually in chapter 250, so it's not gonna be part of the zoning revision.
It's
Right.
its own thing.
It does not regulate how many you can have if you live, or if you own, if you live in a property or some property.
I've seen what's happening
Yeah.
with the couple. It's not like a huge
Right.
townwide problem, but
And you're always gonna have, listen.
There's
you're
always gonna be one.
You're going, and no matter what, any section of this, you're always gonna have that one exception that someone's gonna try to do, one or two people are gonna do it, but do you penalize the vast majority that do follow zoning laws for the one or two? What we need to do is we have our code enforcement officer that as it comes to light to him, that we pursue the proper legal authority and channels to deal with that. And that's a little tougher than, because trying to have someone, on it, and we're a part-time zoning department at this point, building department, but they're working on it, that I assure you.
Alright.
So I would still bring it back to, why don't you write up something
For 76, yeah.
for 76 that
Okay.
makes sense and we can vote on it next time. I'm a little hesitant on just changing 2 times to 1.5 times without looking at all the other potential issues. And I understand, the setbacks and everything else, but I'm still using that 1 acre, issue as far as, we do allow for it in the certain sections of town that have cluster residential, which is over in the Clinton Corners area. There's that quite a few parcels, but now that one parcel, which is the 20-acre parcel, has been taken really off the market for that. But that was potentially one that could have been cluster residential, which, that brings in another whole situation where you got the 20 acres, you could cluster 20 houses technically all in one area.
So, and there's been cases that, they were trying with the down over on Clinton Hollow Road down at the end, right, the one farm that used to be years ago when the guy bought the property, he was planning on doing that. And then it just got into a big legal battle, and then the economy dropped, this going back a while ago. We do, so that, right there, if someone wants to come in, you can't stop the cluster zoning. It's allowed. You can do 1 acre zone, if they do it, they can push it and go through the process, 1 acre zoning, and have houses right next to each other. So you're gonna, at least this is somewhat protected, it's a little bit more controlled.
That's,
As a property, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, no,
Councilmember.
because to me, that's a slightly different case, because it's a whole parcel, and that's gonna be all designated a certain way.
But it affects the
This-
density no different than, actually, it affects the density of the town more with doing cluster zoning than what this would be having, saying, I have a 2-family because I have a family member, or if I do rent it out, or whoever rents it out, whatever it is.
Right.
But at least that's controlled. The cluster zoning, you can, on 20 acres, you can put 20 houses.
And again, it's always who's monitoring those things, and I know that Katerina is aware of one particular instance, not too far down the road here, where an accessory use structure was allowed for a family member, and the property got sold, and the person who bought it thought that it was okay for them to use it as an apartment, and then turned around and tried to use it as an Airbnb, and it was only for the fact that he had to come in for the permit of the Airbnb that actually brought it to light that, number one, it shouldn't have been continued to be used.
And that's part of that is education with people that buy the property, unfortunately not understanding how a special use permit works. And that's,
So let's thank him for coming in for the permit.
I know the property you're talking about. But I'll work on something, we'll go from there.
All right. So, the next item was 78, fresh waters. Anything changed? Ian thinks we should harmonize 65 and 78.
Yeah, we had said that we were gonna delete 65, which is like half a page, and just incorporate it into 78. Ian was gonna do that for us, so maybe we could just have to send him a message and ask him if he's done anything along those lines. He couldn't be here tonight.
Okay, so how about 79?
Fine with it.
The only thing that we had changed was what Jeff recommended, which was to fix C to say, with the intent for resale. That
Yeah.
was the only change that we made.
I think in G, did we say, all directional or advertising signs must comply with 250-70?
You also, yeah, you also changed B.
Yeah, they added to 3 from twice.
Change 2 to 3. Letter B.
Change twice to 3.
Yeah.
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 And above it on A, it's 4 to 3.
No, it's still 4.
It's still 4?
4 days.
A says 4 days.
Yeah, it was 4, it still is 4.
3 times.
I had on D2 here, let's see, no goods purchased with the intent,
yeah.
right? Okay, just make sure that we're still
So is there any other changes that we want to make?
good with that.
Yeah, move on.
We went around a long time on
Have
that.
it, 80. We had decided to keep the changes from the last month.
Yeah.
Eighty-one.
Just ask you a question when you refer to Article 4, 5, 6, how do you know where you find them articles? I was reading before and I found 3 and I don't know how many pages, it's like, it's too bad it wasn't an index saying, you know, Article 3 starts on page so-and-so, Article
Oh.
4.
So Article 6 is all of the zoning law.
That's what Article 6 is.
Mhm.
Because I see here, Article 5 is supplemental regulations.
Yeah.
And I was trying to find where 6 started.
So, yeah, Article 6 is the entire zoning, is all of Section 250, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Article 5 would be like other laws.
Yeesh. Sorry.
What are you new?
Yeah.
You'd have to set up like a swear jar. Every time you hit the mic, you gotta throw money into the.
Oh, you have to read
The
the
mic
sign
jar.
there that's old, that's been in here for years.
I'm a little rusty, sorry.
You had 82 was deleted? And we say refer to 250-18?
18, yep.
Yeah, okay.
And I think we updated 18 as well, so,
Yeah. I'm sure we did.
because I reprinted it out and
Oh, yeah,
showed
there you go.
revised on the 29th. Eighty-two, 81.
Good with that. All we did was change it to extensions permitted to non-conforming buildings instead of alterations.
What are you looking at, 82?
Oh, that's 84, sorry. Yeah, 82 was deleted.
Deleted.
Right. And 83, is that what you're looking at now?
No, the 83 would be I think the change that we made on here, the only thing I had, and was, instead of saying all altercations, we took out or extensions. I think that was the only change that we did, because we put the extensions on 84.
No. Looks like you made a couple of other changes too.
Yeah, we added
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
contained herein other than
Yeah.
250-80 and 250-81.
Yeah. And also in C, you made a change.
Yeah, or building or structure provided,
Yeah.
that's got iron written all over it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so 83 is done.
84, the title was changed to extensions permitted to non-conforming
Yeah,
buildings,
got it.
otherwise everything else.
Okay.
And then 85, the restoration.
Any unintentional cause.
Mine feels A and B should say the same. I said that we should delete the sentence limiting the 18 months.
You changed 18 months to a year.
We also had, right, I think, I'm just trying to see where it was put in here, because I wrote it small here. Prior to damage, with the exception of 250-84, that all applicable New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code provisions are fully complied with? Do you still have that where it says, the damage with the exception of to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says
I
over-
just want to make sure that there, and
Yeah,
then,
it's over there.
and on B after unit or structure.
Yep, it's there.
Okay, good. We did have a section C, we did put C, non-intentional cause. So I don't know if we started working on something on that. that's
Oh,
why-
for C, I think we changed it in A, we changed, in that first sentence, after damage by any unintentional cause is what I had.
Right.
What's that?
We didn't add a C.
Yeah, we didn't add
There's
it.
no
Okay, at one point, we must have been told, because I
Yeah.
wrote something, but I didn't add
Just
to
out
it.
of curiosity, since I wasn't here when this was done, why would you have changed 18 months to a year? What was
So the
re-
conversation was that, especially with what was happening in the last 2 years, people haven't been able to get materials, people haven't been able to get contractors, people haven't been able to settle estates and those type of things. So the intent was that as long as they were operational, that, 18 months or the,
Oh, I see, fully completed, yeah, got it, okay. Oh, except you changed fully commenced to commenced,
yeah, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. As long as
Okay.
they started the operation
right?
within the year, that should be
But if-
acceptable. It's because there could be other circumstances that extends
Right,
it beyond, so we changed it to commence within the year.
But, okay, and I follow that, I think that's a good change, especially with everything we hear about supplies and so on, but why not say commenced within 18 months? Why commence within a year? Why not leave the 18?
No,
I know, but
this was
changed
commenced.
it.
No.
Originally, it said completed, we changed it to commence.
Commenced within a year, why not say commenced within 18 months?
Because we want them to at least start
Yeah.
the process.
Okay, all right,
Because most permits expire, in a short
Yeah.
period of time anyway, so, as long as you're committed to doing it, and it just, you filed for a building permit or whatever, it's just, you can't get things done. So instead of completed with 18 months, it was just commenced within the year.
okay, all right.
'86.
Well, we did in 86, it's every time it said building, we said building or structure. That's an iron shank.
That's an iron.
87 was deleted?
Yeah, this is 98, C98.
Oh, I don't know that. Oh, because that's the ZBA.
And 87 was deleted
Yeah.
originally because Shane Egan said it didn't need to be.
Yeah, he said it was redundant.
You looking for 87?
Yeah, I'm just now 88, I guess is the next one. But nothing really changed there.
Just took out a word,
Yeah, prescribed in the street. Yeah.
took out a word. Oh, changed it, okay.
89, we did nothing. 90, nothing.
We jumped all the way to 93.
Yeah, 93, we just took out C2. We did
Or
nothing.
93.
93 is the next one where we did something.
Well, according to the minutes,
Yeah?
Well, we could talk about it. We just didn't do anything last time.
Yeah, we've talked about it before and we didn't make any changes.
Russ Tompkins again, apparently we made no changes, we skipped to 93, but I'm looking at 90, and specifically on E section. The building inspector, upon showing a proper credential, is authorized to enter upon, examine, and inspect any building structure property at a reasonable time. I think you need to add in there the same wording that you had in 250-89D regarding if entry is denied, if access is denied, in this case, it'd be the building inspector is authorized to obtain a warrant to allow such entry. I don't think that you can actually say that the building inspector comes up and says, I want to come in your house, and I don't think you can deny the owner to refuse that person.
Now, Russ, do you think that would come out into the question of if they have an open building permit? Because right now it doesn't, it's not kind
Well,
of,
I'm not looking at an open building permit, because to that person's, it'd benefit to allow the person to come in. I'm thinking along,
Just have
somebody
someone-
makes a complaint, and the building inspector comes up and says, well, I got a complaint about this, and I want to come in your house, and I'd say, there's the highway.
yeah, I would say the same thing.
Well, does that really happen though? Because the zoning enforcement officer is the one that'll go and
Yeah, but
look at that on the
I mean,
complaint.
you have the, I guess you have to have properable reason, or what's the? well,
Reasonable cause.
Reasonable cause to come in there, and without a warrant, I guess you'd have to get a warrant to come into someone else's.
I'm just trying to
home
think of the situation where a building inspector
Search
would,
and seizure, is that, I don't know.
Yeah, the only
No,
time,
if it's only the zoning enforcement officer that would be doing it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
then you've already covered it.
yeah, obviously, this is taking something out of, I think, the intent. I think the intent is this, in the duties that the inspector is supposed to be doing, but he's doing this as part of the building permit or demolition permit process, so
Well, and if
the
that's
way this sounds, yeah, it sounds like he could just walk right in and do whatever he wants, but, so if you think putting that one section fixes that, I don't see a problem, but,
well, I mean,
I think we have to specify that if you if you go and apply for a building permit, part of that building permit process does allow that building inspector to inspect.
That I agree with you.
Except-
If you have an open building, you apply for a building.
But the title of the section is,
Yeah, it doesn't say that, I know, but that's kind of what it's really
and the
talking
last
about.
part of the sentence though does says, for the purpose of carrying out the duties of the position.
yeah, but it doesn't say for a specific building.
doesn't say-
permit. That's what he's saying.
Duties of the permit.
Oh, yeah.
It's more general.
Yeah, it's very broad and.
It may be irrelevant, I just thought of it,
Yeah.
No, let me just look at 89D and see exactly how it says it. Because that talks about the zoning administrator.
Who may not be welcome.
What section is building permits? I forget.
That was something that worked out and changed,
Here it
I
is.
remember, warrant.
Yeah, it came up from the town board a few years ago.
Does it,
Because the building inspector would only go there to do his job, which is to approve a building permit. It would be the zoning enforcement officer if there was a code violation. So I don't think the building inspector would just be showing up at people's houses saying, I want to see your house.
Yeah, in fact, I know from conversations with Mike just this week that it's all scheduled. All of his inspections are scheduled.
So, I mean, if we change something in here to say that permit inspections, I mean, would that change it? Instead of just inspections, we could put permitted inspections? Would that take out something that you would do an inspection for?
Permitted inspection.
This is the one.
or is it necessary?
I think you may have put on potentially a good wording, because what they've got in there, he's authorized to enter for the purpose of carrying out his duties.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's not going there under a violation thing, he's going here to see if you're progressing properly.
Yeah.
Then you don't have a problem.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. I think the purpose of carrying out the duties is what covers us there.
Then maybe it should say through permitted inspections, with that, then that just clarify, because he's doing the duties of that, what you agree, because when you accept a building permit, you're accepting the conditions, so on the back, like,
It just would take it and not make it as broad, and it would be very specific. It's a permitted inspection,
Yeah.
so, I mean,
one of the things that came out a few years ago, I was on a job site where a building inspector, not in our town, another town, came in, and they had permits to do whatever work they were doing. Through that process, as they were walking in to do the permit inspections for the project that was going on, he started getting his book out and started writing other things that he found, even though it wasn't part of it, and he started walking around the house and starting to find stuff. I'm not sure how that ended, because my stuff, I got closed out and beyond that, but I know there was a case that was from that. But,
When you get a building permit, what is the verbiage on the permit about inspections? It has to be there.
Well, it
Is
does, like,
already
Town of
covered?
Wander's got it written out pretty well. So like when we get them in the back and when you sign to pick them up or whatever, or if you signed on the, you know, doing the paperwork, even if I'm being the person that's doing it for my clients, you know, this is the list of what's accepted and the process that the building inspector has the right to come on to do these inspections, you know, on there, you know, in reasonable time and everything else within that kind of, you're accepting those terms upon signing either the form to get the building permit or to pick it up. So they do mention something similar, not a whole paragraph, it just breaks down like the stage of different inspections, when to be, and then you have the right to be on there to check it if need be.
That's almost always true, Russell.
Because, I mean, technically, and I don't think we would have a problem in our town here, you know, but when you say the building inspector, someone comes up to the door showing proper credentials is authorized to enter upon, examine, and inspect any building structure or property at a reasonable time in the town of Clinton for the purpose of carrying out his duties. Well, you would think that would be, you know, carrying out duties for, you know, if there's an open permit or something else. But it is vague, so if someone read that and we had some kind of crazy person in here and says, well, I want to come out, you know, I see something hanging off the side of your house and, you know, carrying out, it's a safety issue.
But that's the zoning administrator.
Well, if it's a building issue, but yes, yeah, you're right, yes, in theory, but they could technically say in here, it gives the building inspector the authority to show a flash credentials, a badge or whatever he has, and say, I have the right to come in your house, and, oh, here, he comes in with 250-90, section E, saying to someone, here's the code, and, you know. Look, I'm in favor, you know, I'm pro-inspection, you know, stuff, so you know, making sure things are safe. I've been that way from, you know, let it be short-term rentals or the ag, you know, I just think maybe, I mean, I understand the intention of this. I do understand it. Is it a little vague if someone else was reading it? Where if we're trying to clean up wording, then, you know, or the other thing what we can do is we can sit down and see what, you know, other towns do within that and how the wording is because this section here, coming in there to have a right to have a look, I guarantee you is in almost every other town zoning, you know, they're gonna have it within their building inspector, how they approach going into a house. Show the credentials.
I'm not saying I don't agree, but I'm not sure I see the merit of being more specific in that sentence. You're gonna have to prove to me that that's necessary.
I'm not saying it is or it is, I mean, it is, you know, I mean, I understand the intent, so I'm being clear that I understand that. It is a little vague.
Again, I
but-
go back to, should we put permitted inspections instead of just inspections?
Well, no, if you want to really be precise, you have to say something like inspections for a specific building permit or something like that, not permit.
Well, it could be a demolition permit, it could be a building permit, it could be some other type of
It
permit.
could be to
Say
get a short-term rental.
You could say outstanding permit. Would
Oh.
that cover?
No. that's
No, not enough.
Yeah. It's, except you want to cover a specific action.
Well, I mean,
Inspection that covers a specific action.
right, but permits are specific actions
Yeah,
in the
but
broad.
using permitted is a different thing than saying for permits. It's a.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's what
For
I'm saying.
permits.
It's for language. For a specific,
Inspections for open permits.
well, not even necessarily for open.
Well, if you got a closed
Well,
permit,
you
it's
could put
closed out.
inspections for
What if you have an
specific
application?
permits.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. You could
Yeah,
do
but
that.
if you have an application, then, and it hasn't been approved yet, why, if you're at the point of in here, I didn't agree, you know, I didn't take ownership of that permit yet, you haven't given me ownership of that, have that ability to have it, so.
Somebody
why-
makes an application for a short-term rental and they will never get approved until they get an inspection.
Oh, yeah, there is, look, if you put an application, there's a set of terms, they gotta go to the planning board, they gotta go to the zoning board.
So you could say applications or permits. Would that, if you want it?
Actually, you can, ignore it, because if there's a problem, if they won't let the person in and they're trying to follow up on a permit, then
They're not gonna get the permit.
I
they,
get
they
it.
can issue a stop work order.
That's correct.
And they will not get completion, they cannot get a certificate of occupancy. So it behooves the person, if they got a permit, to obviously let them in.
Let them in.
So I think maybe just forget everything that I said and leave it all the way it is.
See what you started.
I'm not one way or the other. I'm just being the opposition to understanding. That's all. So I mean, I'm good with either way.
Anybody have anything on 91 and 92? Because we made no changes to them. Here he goes.
91, A1. Now, I'm reading this and I'm going to ask you some things. I'm saying, no person shall commence the erection, construction, enlargement, alteration. And it goes on, of any building or structure. Now, does that mean internal changes you make in your house, you had to get a permit for? How far does that go? You're redoing your bathroom. You may be putting all new fixtures in. That's entirely within your house, and I don't see why you would need a building permit for that. But if it falls under alteration, but I'm saying it's not the alteration of the building, it's the alteration of the contents of the building in a sense. So
That's a
what
good. That's a good
really
point.
do you need a building permit for?
I believe you do,
So
if I'm not mistaken.
New York State, the guidelines typically with New York State with the building permit, and there's a wide variety with different towns on this one, how they enforce it, and I'll give you a couple examples. But if it's if there's physical structural issues, and requires, say, a support beam, that'd be one thing that'd trigger on the inside. Electrical, typically, if you're doing electrical modifications. Plumbing, they say, other than replace, you can replace fixtures. Now, town of Poughkeepsie is probably the most restrictive
Oh, yeah, they make you get a permit for everything.
to do a toilet replacement, which is technically a toilet is not a permanent fixture in a house.
Yeah, but anything that touches their plumbing or their, water sewer,
They
require.
have that, and that's been a contention as a licensed plumber with me in the town of Poughkeepsie for years. We're paying, it takes you 40 minutes to change the toilet. To get the permit, you're charging the customer an hour and a half of time. Now, the city of Beacon will say, being licensed down there, and I call the building department, okay, hey, we're just changing fixtures out right on down to a bathtub, and as long as electrical isn't getting changed on it, have at it. That might have changed over the past year, but that's been, so I mean, there's a wide variety as far as that goes, but usually the rule of thumb is if it's a major electrical modification, I'm not saying change an outlet or, you're changing an outlet.
No,
or
but I
switch
mean,
or
I
something.
think you should be able to remodel your bathroom without getting a permit for it. I see no reason.
Isn't there also a dollar amount that our guys use, our building inspector? I thought there was a dollar amount.
I don't think so. But I know that, like, when, anybody sells an appliance, it doesn't come with the electric cord, and they won't install it, like Sears or whoever, going back. And same thing with a gas line. They won't install those lines.
Well, the electric, they will. So the electric lines, like Lowe's, Home Depot, and going back.
I'll sell you the line, they won't install it.
Oh, they do it all the time now. They have their own.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Now, gas, though, you're right, because I get, my customers call me all the time for gas. So they won't come and they seen it, there, they just won't touch that. Now, that's on, as far as their liability goes with that, but to get a permit, if you're just changing out a dryer or a stove, there's no, I don't know any town, if you're putting new service in and you're going from electric to a gas stove and you have a gas line, then you have a heating appliance that you're adding, then it would trigger a permit that I would have to go get, so.
All right, well, along that same paragraph, and English wasn't my forte, math was. If you read further down, it says, after 250.22b of this chapter, as pertains to accessory structures, are other non-permanent accessory structures not exceeding 50 square feet. And are any other non-permanent accessory structures not exceeding 50 square feet? So if it's above 50 square feet, it sounds like you don't need it. But if it's less than 50 feet, you do. I think not is an improper word there.
No, it says except as provided in 250-22B, so meaning, and that says, an
That's where you can
accessory
have
structure-
120 square foot as long as it's not on a foundation and stuff.
Exactly, so, so this is, the exceptions to this are that, or another non-permanent accessory structure that doesn't exceed 50 square feet. I don't know how that would be different from 22B, but I
Yeah, but
suppose somebody
22B
thought it
says
was.
you can have it 120 square feet.
Yeah.
And this says
50.
not exceeding 50, and it seems like that's a contradiction if I'm reading it right.
Well, that brings up another topic, because I was talking to the building inspector, and he says the state code is 144 square feet.
12 by 12, yeah.
So should we match 228 to 144 while we're doing these changes?
Well, it just seems like I'm reading it, I'm saying, other non-permanent accessory structure not exceeding 50 square feet, so they're saying you could do something less than 50 square feet, but 225-22 as an accessory structure says you can go to 120. So if and I'm not, like I say, English is not my forte, but it sounds to me like this is directly in opposition to each other.
How's it read to you?
Well, it does say, it says, one accessory structure with a maximum floor area of 120 square feet may be installed or constructed without the issuance of a building permit or C of O.
Yeah.
Provided that A, B, C, D, E, one of which is structure does not have a permanent foundation.
Which is odd, because then that next section of 91 then says
Yeah,
non-permanent accessory structure exceeding 50 square feet. I don't know what's considered non-permanent.
well, I guess if it's sitting on blocks or sitting on cinder blocks or something, it doesn't have,
Yeah, you don't have a footing.
it can
Yeah.
be picked up and moved.
Well, well, then it makes no sense why it's even.
No,
I
it
understand.
contradicts 22B in that case,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think they should almost cross out that section as it pertains to, you get 250-22B that allows you to have it, and then the rest of this are other non-permanent accessory structure not exceeding 50 square foot. Sounds like that should be deleted.
Yeah, in between those two
Two
commas.
commas, yeah.
Can't imagine what that would refer to.
I can't either.
So we're going to delete that?
I think so, between those two commas.
Starting with or other and ending in size.
I doubt it's ever come up.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out what the intent was to it. The applicant-
And then we want to change 22B to 144?
Is that what the state uses?
Yeah, that's what the building inspectors told me.
244 square feet, is that what?
144.
144.
144.
It's 120 now,
Right, that's what I
to
said.
match the state code would be,
Basically a 12 by 12. And Russ, I just want to add your sentiments on doing an inside renovation. If you're changing just fixtures and you're changing stuff, I think, you're not reopening walls and stuff to redo, like, your sinks. I agree with you. You shouldn't have to have a permit, in my term.
Well,
I mean, I have to pull them all the time, running, and because, it costs more in time than what you're just changing something.
it's impossible to monitor anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a tough thing to,
So we changed that to 144.
I changed it to
Okay, me
144. Is everybody else is fine with it?
I'm fine with it.
yeah.
What was the consensus about 250-90? Carrying out the duties, we're just going to leave it the way it's written? Is that where we
Yeah,
ended
we
up?
never
Left it
changed
up.
any of it.
No, we
All right.
kept it.
Okay.
91, the rest of it?
Anything else, Russ?
Well, first I thought I had something when I read on page 3, number 4. And you're talking about carrying the official seal or stamp of authorized architect, land surveyor, professional engineer, and all this, and I'm saying that's just making somebody spend a lot of money. But then I did Elliot's point here on 4A, alterations costing less than $20,000 are basically exempted from it. So you don't have to do all those plans and, things signed by professionals. And also residential buildings of a gross floor area of 1,500 square feet or less. So that kind of took away my bite from what I thought was onerous burden on you by having professionals.
So you're saying you're just bark now? So you're saying you're just bark now?
Just bark now?
Yeah.
No bite.
No.
No bite.
No bite, just bark.
Well, I mean, I could theoretically see that a person could do, I'm sure that the addition that I put on my house would probably be over $20,000. But it was an addition of less than 1,500 square foot, so I don't know if that addition is considered falling under residential buildings. It's like an addition, but I did it all myself, I had a friend that I used to work with and
I can't find the section.
drew up some things, and I just did it all myself, so
Yeah, but where?
$20,000 probably isn't too much now when you go
Where are
to do
you?
something, so.
Are you thinking that a number wise because of the cost and stuff
maybe we
to make
should-
it, because when this was written back in the day, 20,000?
Yeah, you have two
Yeah.
things.
I mean, your plans and specifications, if it was over $20,000, you'd have to have it.
Mine is
Carry the
here.
official seal or stamp of an authorized architect, land surveyor, professional engineer, licensed in the state of New York who says they conform to all
I just don't think
requirements.
you have the next page.
Sounds a little,
I mean, you can spend
What's it-
$3,000 on plans, just have a architect today, just do, for a project, just to get them out there anymore, it's $3,000.
Does anybody know the price per square foot for new building right now?
About $400.
Is that what you?
That's what that's what we came up with at the ECFD.
Okay.
Estimated about $400 a square foot, give or take.
Imagine that, back in the day.
Yeah, no kidding.
That just pretty much
Yikes.
doubled over the past 10 years.
Yeah, that's a lot.
We're still using for insurance calculations $200 a square foot.
I was gonna say, the ECFD
Really?
is for a kind of a commercial building
Yeah.
too. It's not a resident.
Oh, okay, well, that's
Yeah.
true, yeah, that's true. Maybe it's less
So
for,
insurance calculations is
200?
probably about
Okay.
220.
all right.
It used to be 120,
Yeah,
I mean,
well.
but,
I was just trying to
Right.
think about the number, whether
Yeah.
that number needed to be.
Okay, Russell, you're all right here?
anything on 91? We're done?
Well, the question is, do we leave that number, or do we want to adjust it for inflation? And how would we come up with a number, I guess, is the bigger idea than just arbitrarily picking a number.
Well, I think they were using 20,000 as to something that was maybe you and I could do as a layperson versus when you start getting more expensive.
That would be what, 100 square feet, based on your calculations, right? Not much.
Well, and then, well, my question isn't entirely pertinent because this is alterations, but I was just asking as a sort of a frame of reference.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'll give you an idea of just of what's going on with the job that I
Yeah,
got
but-
going on today for inflation and what materials cost, which, just splitting a fairly small house down in Beacon as, radiators and making it multiple zones, fairly, a 3-day project is, $12,000-13,000 and the materials on that are, 40% of the
Is
cost.
this,
Well, I mean, the harm in leaving it small is that I don't see a harm. I mean, yes, more people have to get a building permit, but
does alterations also include additions?
Well, that's what I was gonna say, to Catherine's point, this is just alterations.
That's different than an
so
addition.
I think it's fine.
Yeah, an addition's
And-
gonna cost a lot more than an alteration.
And if somebody,
no, it doesn't just alterations, I mean, go back to
It says alterations.
no person shall commence the erection, construction, alteration, removal, improvement, or conversion of any building or structure. That's where A1, the scope comes in.
Yeah,
So
but-
if you turn around and we're gonna put an addition on it, that's an enlargement of the building.
Yeah,
but we're only talking about, I'm sorry, Michael.
yeah, no, we're talking about section 4 where we were talking about the stamp of the professional engineer. is not needed if it's an alteration costing less than $20,000. And not
Right.
involving
And
changes
I
affecting
said,
structural.
when was this article put into effect, whatever year it was? If you look at the year, whether it was 1990, and turn around and say, okay, with inflation, what's $20,000 from 1990 equal now? That'd be a fair way to do it. You're just adjusting for inflation.
Well, you could increase it to what, $50,000?
I mean, it's just really talking about, it says changes affecting structural or public safety.
Not involving,
And all we're talking about is if they have to get plans. So, right? That's the only thing this section is
Accept
talking about.
applications.
What's that?
yeah.
The only, all we're asking is all the section is about is, will they be required to have plans by an architect?
Right.
You know, one way we can do is we can just check, we can, check with the building department, see what kind of permits are coming in with the range of the cost on it, and is a lot of stuff that they're writing down, saying it's gonna cost that much on the estimated cost when they fill it in the permits or not? Get an idea.
So we have to make sure we're talking about alterations.
Alteration,
Not-
that's correct. I mean, 20,000 still, if you take out, say, you're all making alteration inside the house, you're taking out a supporting wall, that's an alteration, that's a structural issue.
But that's, yeah, and this also says alterations not involving
Right.
changes affecting structural or public
Oh,
safety.
I'm sorry, I
So,
misread.
I mean, to me, this is, re-sheet rocking. This is,
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, you know what, if you're resheet, I think,
I feel like
I
20
think
might
20,
still
I
be
think,
okay, is
Yeah.
my point.
I think 20,000 is, we can come up on that number today with inflation on that. We're not doing not structural, what are you're gonna, every time they open up a wall to replace some
Well,
sheet, right?
not to the believer, how about 30,000?
Sit in the middle.
I love it.
I like that. Compromise is king.
Is that a number adjusted over since this was done?
It's an easy number to
It's
make a decision on without having to
We haven't
get
even started anything
get
new
an
yet. We gotta
educated
get going.
building permit stamp on it.
thank you.
For whatever it's worth, it's left $44,000
What, 20,000?
today. In 1999.
Oh, you did the calculation on it?
Well, so
She's got the
50,
internet.
50 wasn't that far off.
Oh, thank you for that. Makes us really feel how much real inflation really costs over the years. 44,000. Could you imagine that?
Section 92.
Nice.
Russ, this is good. We can go on.
93, we deleted C2. I imagine I argued vociferously against deleting C2, but I'm willing to accept that I lost that night, so I won't fight it now.
Not all of us are. Some of us aren't willing to accept that. We'll save that for another time.
Yeah. '94.
I just had a procedural question.
Mm-hmm.
This annual report when is that submitted? I'm sorry, so it's page 2,
F.
F,
Yeah.
2F.
Town board in writing at least annually. Well, I mean, we do get monthly reports of the inspector telling us how many buildings he's inspected and for how much.
From the
I don't know if
building
we have a
inspector.
fire
I
inspector
don't know
anymore.
that, well,
Well, that was my other,
Ed Maddock was the last fire
fire
inspector.
inspector, well,
right,
he,
so that was my other question.
Building guy does the fire, too.
he does
Yeah.
fire as well.
He does
He does
both,
both.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Did we clarify him as fire inspector?
It says in B that the town board may appoint one person to hold both positions simultaneously.
Yeah, and, you know, Ed Maddock basically kind of floated between the building and the zoning.
Yeah.
He was the fire inspector,
Right.
so
Right.
he served several functions, you know, before the cutbacks.
so our building inspector's reports encompass these.
But it doesn't talk about
Yeah,
fire
it's not an
inspection.
annual report, though, that we get. Yeah, oh, yeah, so at least annually.
But
We
he
do
doesn't-
get one monthly.
But he doesn't give
Well,
fire
let me ask you
inspection
something.
reports, it's
Does
just
it,
building
does it say in
inspection.
Mike's, job description, you know, or I should say the building inspector job description here? Because it,
Well-
we quote, you know, with that of doing the fire inspections, part of that job description.
He's
now.
doing an inspection based on New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building
And
Code.
it says it in his, I'm just saying, I'm just
Yeah,
making
we
sure if
should
gotta
check that, but
Yeah,
I
I'm just
believe
saying if we
it's-
and then we gotta, because we might have to reword that, so it's clear, so if, liability-wise, if we ever had an issue,
Mm-hmm.
and someone came back in here and says, well, okay, where does it show that he's appointed for, even though in theory,
Yeah.
the building inspector, most building inspectors, they don't have a separate fire inspector for that in a lot of towns now.
Right, but it needs to be.
I think it just needs to be, you know, just checked out and,
I didn't have a problem, I was just those are my questions.
but that's a good point, Catherine,
As a
because, you
newbie.
know, we've all seen the building inspection reports over the past couple of years, as you'll see.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I've never seen anything specific in the past 2 years about fire inspection reports.
I imagine that the answer I'm going to get from Mike Cosenza is that his building inspection reports, those inspections include fire inspections.
Oh, I'm sure they, like, when he
So
comes
it's
in
the
there,
same.
they got you know, they
Yeah.
got the smoke alarms, the carbon monoxide detectors as part of state, the safety, you know, the fire inspection safeties.
So I'll just confirm that with him. He's not in till Monday again, I think.
All right, so
And you'll check on his appointment.
What was that?
And you'll check on his appointment as fire inspector as well.
Yeah, I'm going to check his job description, the appointment, and what his reports include.
Okay.
May have to change his job title.
Yeah.
If it involves fire inspector and building inspector.
Well, I don't,
All right, so new section, 25095.
The ghost of Ian Schrank is with us. He had some comments that I don't even know when I had this printed from, but it's from a while ago. C, so where is it? Page 3, C4A, under variances. I think it was intended to say, so where it says, the zoning administrator shall within 5 days or at its next regular meeting transmit the application, he thinks it was meant to say, the zoning administrator shall by the later of 5 days or after such determination is made or the next regular meeting. I think it could also,
I don't like the way that,
yeah, I think it should,
worded.
I think the zoning administrator shall within 5 days or at its next regular meeting, comma, whichever is latest, or
Yeah.
whichever is later, comma,
Yeah,
transmit the application.
that would be better.
I still don't like the English, but that's all right.
You would think, yeah.
So how would you write it?
It's
They're not-
more
he's
of a
not-
grammatical
He's not saying
thing,
that it
so
has
I
to
don't
be
think it matters.
reviewed, simply that the application has to be transmitted. It doesn't require the planning board to review it at that timeframe. All it's just talking about how long the zoning administrator can take before he actually turns the application over to the planning board. That's,
It's saying he's gonna submit it before the meeting
that's all,
to the
yeah.
planning board for the recommendation to the
Yeah,
ZBA.
but it doesn't mean they have to review it right at that specific moment. All it says is that he has to give it to them by a certain time.
Okay, so you're saying if they don't have time to do it that meeting, they can do it the next meeting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there any, when you apply for a variance, is there any time on this where you've got to respond to it, to the applicant?
For the planning board?
Well, I mean, anybody, they need
Oh.
an answer back in a certain time? Because if you don't, I don't know.
No, that's a good question. I mean, usually,
When we get it to the ZBA, they've had it like, maybe that week that we get the
Right.
recommendation from them.
right. Well, they typically would go on to the next agenda for the planning board. And then when the planning board rules on it, it would go to the next ZBA meeting. So usually it's no more than a month from the time the application is put in until it's actually heard by the ZBA. That's the way the process usually works, unless there's a problem with the application and it has to go back for more work. But that's
Whatever, I
rare.
have no problem with it. I have no problem with the way it is, but
The variances typically go pretty quickly. Some of the other ones that tend to take a longer period of time, that require more review.
So Catherine, how do you want to
Yeah, can we
rewrite it?
change it's more grammar, but I just don't like that it says at its regular meeting. It's not the zoning administrator's regular meeting, it's the planning
Yeah,
board's
it's the planning
regular
board,
meeting.
yeah, it's confusing.
So I would like it to say something more like within 5 days, or at the planning board's next regular meeting, or the board's next
Right.
regular meeting, something.
Next
It's just-
the next regular meeting of the planning
The
board?
planning board,
Sure, yeah, yeah.
That's actually more clear, yeah. Have more from Iden?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's been busy.
C6, Ian says, this says the planning board only makes quote-unquote recommendations for a demolition permit, but 250-93D is clear
yeah.
that the planning board approves or disapproves.
Yes,
So use determinations instead of recommendation.
right.
And make
So C6.
determinations regarding applications?
Yeah, the planning board shall review and make determinations
Yeah.
regarding applications for demolition permits.
The only thing I would say in defense of the planner that wrote this, we didn't have a building demolition permit process at that point when this was written.
Oh,
It came in afterwards.
Did it? All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we're doing it, right?
Well, that's why
One of the
the
reasons.
recommendation is now a determination.
Right. I mean, that's what we're reviewing.
What else we got?
Hold on.
Oh, you looking at violations?
I'm looking at D, yeah.
Violations?
Ian is saying, I found the first sentence very difficult to understand and recommend revising as follows for clarity, and I'm trying to find the spot where he starts. So I think in the third line, he thinks it should say, and shall not review or hold public meetings or public hearings regarding, and shall take no action regarding an application.
Sure, that just,
It's a lot more words.
well, that's, but, I mean, that's basically the process anyhow.
Yeah.
That, the planning board won't even hear an application where there is an outstanding violation. So,
So what was changed?
I almost want to hand it to you. in D.
It's really just adding regarding, isn't
here,
it?
he thinks it should say this.
Shall not review or hold public meetings or public hearings regarding.
And shall take no action
Right.
regarding, right? So
Yeah.
just adding the word regarding after public hearings, I think, if I understand it.
Shall take no action regarding an application.
No, because you're adding all that stuff about
Yeah,
taking public action, holding hearings, and so on,
yeah.
which basically just codifies what they already do. I think that's what,
I
what
find,
do you do? Smith?
I like it, but I find
What's that?
this interesting,
Comprehensive plan?
as if they could act on their own.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. I wasn't aware of that, but there it is. Thought that was a town board thing.
What are you talking about?
So, what would it be under?
Section 8.
8, just above D there, what we were just talking about.
Yeah,
C8,
where it
a
talks about-
comprehensive plan. In accordance with 272A of the town law,
Oh, yes, I know, yeah, that's their purview, not the town board.
that the town board doesn't start it. The planning board may prepare
Well,
and change a
may.
comprehensive, may,
May.
a comprehensive plan for the development of the entire area
But
of the
how
town.
can, they can't, so, I guess this is my question with that section there. That would have to be, it's basically saying that they have the authority to override the town board to basically make that determination without us voting on it.
But they
Yeah.
don't have the authority to spend the money, do they?
So, well, by, the only, in New York State, you have, if you're a town with zoning, you have a zoning board, which is somewhat of a judicial kind of board, right? Planning board, technically, town, you can do away with the planning board, and the power is not I mean, it's binding to the point because we use it as a vehicle to get to the zoning board.
This is the problem with changing this, where it says in accordance with
But if it's
272A of the town law.
you can,
That's
yeah.
New York State town law. That's not our town law.
Yeah, that takes
Is that, you
precedence.
saying,
I think that's
Yeah.
272A of New York State town law.
maybe we should
Yeah,
check that
I want to
out,
look into
Yeah, I
that.
think that's New York State town law.
circle that there.
So I don't think that's something we can actually change.
Okay.
They can arbitrarily take a vote and say, okay, well, we want to change this in the
We could-
comprehensive plan.
We could add New York
There
State town
might be
law.
something missing
Yeah.
on that. I think we gotta pull up if that's the town law within the state.
I want to look into it first before we do that. But
Yeah.
we could add New York
New
State
York
town
State
law.
town law to make it
Because
clear.
we adopt, the town board, after going through the process in the public hearings, we adopt the comprehensive plan. There's a whole set of public hearings for it. So you're saying the planning board themselves can go and circumvent that whole process?
Yeah, I know.
I can't
Well,
imagine that being true,
they-
but
they-
listen, it is New York State.
There are parts of it they can't do, so
It's just,
I don't think it grants as
you
much
sit up here
permission
long enough, you
on the
start
face
seeing
of it.
stuff the state does, it makes you.
Yeah. She's like, you're like, all right, let's go back to the planning board.
Can we go back to the beginning for
Yeah,
me, for A4?
yes.
The town board shall have the power to remove any member of the planning board for cause after public hearing. Define cause. Maybe we don't want to define cause, but that seems awfully,
Well, one cause is
One
missing
cause
three-
was-
three meetings.
Yeah, it
Three
was written in
consecutive
here.
meetings.
well, yes, but that's a separate section.
Yeah.
That's true.
And-
And it refers to that. It refers back to it as pursuant
And-
to A4 of this chapter, but
Well, cause would be if you're taking bribes.
It just, I can see the merits of leaving it at that word, and then I can, by the same token would like more detail, and I don't know the best way to play it. But,
Well, of course, the danger,
I know, it's a catch-22, right?
well, you don't want to be too specific or too broad. So you're sort of stuck in between. I mean, if you're too specific, then you're leaving out things that
Right.
could be, but if you're too broad, then you're just allowing,
And cause may not be too broad, it just stuck out to me when I was reading it, and,
I think one of the things we should remember is that it does require a public hearing, and then it requires, I assume, 3 of the town board members to
right.
vote.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say, it's the town board, so that means that there's
Yeah.
5 people deciding, so it is
Yeah.
it would be a fair and balanced process. Okay, that
It
is
would
a,
hopefully not be a,
that is a answer, that is a sufficient answer to me, for me. Are you looking up that code?
are you looking
Yeah,
at
I'm just
that
reading a
section?
lengthy section here.
If I could, just 2, I think, minor housekeepings. On page 4, the new number 6
Yes,
and the new number 5, they both end with, it's like semicolon and.
It's not the only place that happens.
And it's like, and what I got here? You don't need an and between demolition permits and
especially if
non-conforming
they're
uses.
numbered differently, I think.
Yeah, it happens on 3, on the
Yeah,
previous page too.
It's on 5, it's on 6 there on that page. I think that those ands need to be crossed out. I don't know what they're
Well,
doing.
it's, what is it, where is it?
that may be left from our previous version. Because it doesn't really, it's not a list, so it doesn't really follow.
Shane did this, right?
No, this is Neil Wilson.
This is,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
this is Neil Wilson. Typically, you would use and if you were having a list of boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, but I mean, 5 is distinctly different from
Yes.
6, so you don't need an and at the
Well,
end of
maybe there
5.
was something in there before, and then we took
Correct.
it out, and he forgot to take out the and.
Right, but so there's several, there's
Well,
page,
Unless you're saying this and the next number.
and we also have to see that the and in like 5 is underlined, meaning it was added.
It was added.
It was
Oh, yeah,
added.
it's
Also-
in red, so it's added.
6 was
Yeah.
added. Oh.
Yeah, 6 was added.
The blues and the reds are
special use for
added
inclusion
Added
at
things.
different times.
Yeah.
and demolition permit.
So it's clearly something the attorney added,
No. Neil would have added
or, yeah, Neil.
Wilson would have added it.
Oh, he's an attorney.
Yeah, but he didn't mean that.
And as I said,
He just
on the
got lucky
7,
on that
you
one.
told me what it was. I said, Article 6, I said, what the hell, where's Article 6? You said, that's the whole book, which confuses me because you have Article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why is Article 6 then the whole entirety of the thing?
Oh, you know what?
Doesn't make sense.
It is on
That's
some
weird.
things.
I wonder
You're
why that-
leafing through from the front, you'll come through 1, 2,
Even
3,
though-
4, 5.
The,
And like I say, I don't,
unless, well, I don't know. No, never mind, that's not right. Nothing.
Yeah, see, it's after each,
visions of Article 6
Right.
in this chapter.
it is, I think it's intentional.
I do not
And
know.
and you don't see it in anywhere else like that, anything else.
Well,
that
Catherine's
we-
saying it's intentional, because if you look up at the top of page 3,
I think it's intentional too.
that's where it starts with the and.
Yeah, no, I know.
And that's what I'm saying, is that when you say and at an end of a sentence, it's really not, it's saying it must include this and the next
So if-
section and the next section.
If you look at C and just read it as C is authorized actions, then it's subdivisions and lot line adjustments and variances.
Oh, well, maybe that's what
and
it-
site
yeah.
plans
Right.
and demolition permits, like that's what this
Oh,
is.
so that's what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you list 6 as demolition permits and you list 7 as non-conforming uses, what purpose did the and do? Saying demolition and non-conforming uses? Well, that's,
Yes,
Yeah, because
that's
it's,
the next number. That's
because read the first
Well-
sentence, planning board shall review and make recommendations regarding all applications for change of non-conforming use.
it is,
It's an action.
it's, I understand what you're seeing, Ray, and it's kind of confusing the way it is, but if you took out the numbers and you just read it straight, then you need the ands, and I think that's where the
Right.
person that did the edits is coming from.
Yeah, purpose.
Less is more.
Less is more.
I
I
would-
tell my clients that sometimes less
Are we
is
still
more.
on 95?
Yeah.
I would bring up the issue in section E.
That's,
What page?
Oh, I'm sorry, page 5.
Oh, page 5?
Yeah, page 5 of the planning board thing. For the purposes of this section, a regularly scheduled meeting shall be defined as any meeting or workshop scheduled at least 30 days in advance, and any site visit scheduled at least 2 weeks in advance.
Seems awful.
That may be punitive on the site visit thing, because, I mean, I can remember from my days on the planning board when we did site visits, and they were typically done on weekdays during working hours, and people who were employed simply could not get away for site visits. It was something that they couldn't do. And so there were many people who didn't make site visits because they simply couldn't fit it into their schedule. So I don't know that we want to penalize people for not making site visits.
However, if you read, it's 3 consecutive regularly planned board meetings in a calendar year,
Yeah,
including all those. So
yeah,
you would have to miss a meeting, a workshop, you know, it would be, I understand your point, but I still think it would be hard to meet the criteria of 3 in a row, even if you, unless they scheduled, did they typically schedule several site visits in a week?
Well, you have 2 planning board meetings in a month.
we would do multiple site visits sometimes on one day. We might do 2 or 3 site visits on one day when we would go out, depending on what was on the agenda. So basically, what this is saying is if you miss 2 meetings and a site visit, that's your 3.
Right.
I would take the site visit
And I don't
out.
think site visits should be counted, that's all.
I don't think site visits
That they
should be
should be
counted either,
counted.
because there was times when I did site visits all by myself. I mean, I
Yes.
know that there's a lot of people that tend to go out together, but,
Right.
you know, when I was on the zoning board, I would do my site
Right.
visits on my own.
So,
They are helpful, but not essential.
Right. And typically, even when you go out together as a group, you're not supposed to talk about things.
Well, we would go out in groups of 2, so it wasn't.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
It
If you
wasn't
go
a
out in
forum.
a full group, that's what I'm saying.
No, you couldn't do that.
You couldn't
Right.
talk about
No.
things,
Yeah.
so.
so if you just ended that paragraph with it scheduled at least 30 days in advance, period,
Yeah.
and took off the end, that would work,
Yeah.
Elliot?
That'd be fine.
I think that's still, I mean, you're just trying to eliminate people that aren't participating, and
Right,
it still happens with those,
Right.
with that law.
right.
So what are we're taking off the last part of that, right?
Site visit.
Just the last piece of that sentence,
Yeah,
that
at
paragraph.
least 2 weeks visit schedule.
Russell should be happy with that.
I think I know the answer to this
Were you
question.
cutting it off?
So it will be an advance period,
Okay,
and then the rest goes. Yep.
this we go.
So, under page 3, C2, and then the rest of that is deleted.
What are you talking, I'm sorry.
Page 3.
What are you talking?
Page 3,
Oh, all this stuff, yeah.
C, right. So, there are public hearings, but they're just referenced in a separate,
Right.
in a different place, correct? Okay.
Right.
I thought I had it right, but I wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, the subdivision regs and the lot line, they all talk about public hearings.
All right,
Yes.
great. Thank you. So it's just redundant.
Right,
All right.
exactly. I wonder if we should add something. We had an issue recently with an applicant who did not live in the town. I wonder if we should put something in here since I think, doesn't state law require that the applicant live in the town, Michael? I forget how that was.
An applicant to be on the planning board
Yeah.
But
from
not a
out of
resi-
town.
But not a resident of
So
the
we
town.
had 2 separate issues. We had one who
Okay.
lives,
Like across the
I
road.
believe he's in the town of Hyde Park, actually, but,
Right,
and like across the road from
very,
Clinton.
very close.
He was clearly, didn't live in the town.
Right.
Couldn't do it. There was another one who owned property in the town of Clinton, but did not reside in the town of Clinton. It was vacant land. And we also did not accept that application.
Should we,
Again, these were raised
They were
determinations.
raised determinations.
should we?
I don't know that to be law.
I thought we did some research and discovered that you needed to be a resident of the town to be on the board.
That was definitely, I can check through old emails, but I believe it was our town attorney's opinion that you have to be a
And it
resident.
was a resident, not a property owner.
Yeah, and that's a
Well,
good one we gotta
What
check.
if you're a second homeowner?
Second homeowner, yeah, it's,
If you're not a resident.
Yeah, is
Yeah.
it your primary resident? I mean, we could really go down
we
a
could
rabbit hole
really.
here.
I mean, that's the question, so I'm wondering if we need to, clarify that here, or just kind of let it go.
Well, it'd be good
No,
to know,
I-
because
it
we've had
would be
two
good to know.
applicants wanting to
Well, yeah,
be on the
exactly.
planning board, so.
And
It needs to be
I
clarified
think, yeah.
where it needs to land, where that
I
clarification
mean, I
needs
think
to
in the case
land.
in the case of somebody who doesn't live in the town, the answer's pretty clear, but in the other two, it's not.
like, and this would apply to the ZBA as well.
Yes, absolutely.
We decided that it did not apply to the CAC because the CAC is just advisory.
Right.
We currently have somebody who lives in the town of Stamford that's on our CAC.
Okay.
Yeah, but wouldn't you want to keep it consistent though?
Well, you could,
I mean,
maybe, but there is, you see that the difference in definition that like,
because
as an
the
advisory.
CAC does, as far as when it goes, if something gets bounced back to the planning board with a recommendation from a
The
CAC,
CAC is really not
it's,
an official organization.
committee.
that's true.
They
Legislative.
make recommendations, they have
Right.
no powers.
But those recommendations go and can be used.
It could
based on-
influence, but
they
it's
could
not-
influence.
You could come as a.
But they don't make the decision.
No, I know that.
You could just show up at the planning board and make a recommendation, doesn't, mean,
Uh,
It should apply to the BAR though, because that's a board,
yep.
right?
Yes.
As well as ZBA and the planning board,
Right.
as opposed to the CAC, which is a committee.
Recreation Committee?
Well, that's a committee
Committee.
too.
Yeah, it's,
Scenic
So that-
roads
yeah.
is a committee,
Scenic roads
right?
is a committee.
yeah, they both have it, CAC and Scenic Roads both have advisory in their name, that's why I
Oh, I see.
I
Okay.
questioned the Recreation Committee.
Oh,
I mean, granted, we want as many volunteers as we can get. If somebody wants to be on rec,
well, that's true. We don't want to discourage people.
I think we're gonna make it that a lot of people are gonna wanna be on it.
I think so.
I hope
It
so.
sounded
Gonna be
good.
the committee to be on.
That's right, it's gonna be the fun one where we got
All the cool
activities.
kids are doing it.
All right, back to the matter at
Okay,
hand.
moving on.
How are we on 95?
I'm good.
I don't have anything else. Not that I had much.
Most of the stuff that Neil, just for Catherine's benefit, since she's not as acquainted as we are, most of the stuff that Neil took out is stuff that's already there in other places.
It's redundant, yes.
Yeah,
I just
Okay.
wanted to confirm that out loud
Yeah.
in person.
yeah.
Ian had a lot of opinions about the next section.
97?
96.
Let's skip over. All right.
Well, it's Article 6, Administration and Enforcement,
Yeah, site plans.
Site Plans Review,
Review,
Resource
resource
Mapping.
Maybe we can hear if anybody, like Russ or Katarina, do you have anything on 96? Let's start with that.
I don't have anything written down here. I remember, I like resource analysis shall, but I think towards the end of it,
You gotta talk at the mic, Russ. People can't hear you, sorry.
the thing I remember on 96 was where they talk about a resource analysis and what it should include, but then I think I was quite concerned about it, but I think somewhere later on, it's not required for things that I thought it would be too hard for. Let's see. I think somewhere it says the planning board can basically decide it's not needed.
Yeah, what it says is in number 6 on page 4, the resource analysis and conceptual site plan discussion shall not be construed to be an approval of the development plan by the planning board and is only a precursor to a formal application for site approval.
Because that whole section is about the pre-application conference,
Yeah.
which is really just a,
But the planning board is also empowered to grant waivers as well to these various things.
yes, but my point was, this whole that whole spot that we were just talking about is only about this pre-application conference, which is my understanding after reading it is about, they sit down and talk about what the person wants to do, and, well, you're gonna, and advise them. It's more of an advisory
Oh,
before we
yes.
actually come to the meeting.
right.
So you have all your ducks in a row, we're helping you.
Right, yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly right.
Okay, this, I think Ian's first comment is funny, and it's true. So in 8.2b,
Eat?
I'm sorry, B2b, sorry. So on page 2, he says, change conceptual site plan here and everywhere else to conceptual plan, which is the defined term in the definitions. Of course, when you read the definition, it says nothing substantive, so the reader will not know what is needed for a conceptual plan. Because when you go and look up conceptual plan, it literally says the initial stage of a subdivision or site plan review by the planning board, also called a sketch plan. So it really doesn't have much of a definition.
Well,
But he makes a good point that this says conceptual site plan, and in our definitions, it says conceptual plan, and it should be consistent.
right,
So take out site.
take
Yeah.
out site.
Well,
And
either that
then,
or,
and then when we do
Or
definitions.
we change the definition.
Well, we
or
have
add
conceptual
site,
plan.
add site to the definition.
Yeah.
Well, does it, is there any, do we need to add that word? Like, can we, is conceptual plan,
Well, calling it a conceptual site plan would simply make it, I think, more clear.
okay, well
Yeah.
then, if that's,
I think you could go either way, I suppose.
well, I think site plan may be better.
Page 16.
Then it doesn't have to be changed in the,
He has many notes.
It just needs to be
Forgive me.
defined.
exactly, right, there you go. Okay. All right,
Come up with other things, because it'll
Okay.
take me a while to figure out what his note.
okay.
Got a page and a half.
Ryan. He really went to town on this one, huh? Yep, looks like
Yeah,
Russell's up.
I'm hoping, on page 2, 2B, it says unless waived by the planning board, all applicants are required to submit a resource analysis and conceptual site plan. I'm hoping that they're generous in their waiver of this, because I think the requirements for it are pretty involved and not necessarily due on a lot of things. So I don't know how much they do that, but
Well, Russell, I think most of the things that are asked for, the applicant would have to do anyway, in terms of an application. And I can remember many cases on the planning board, and I'm sure it's still true, Kat can speak to this, where people would come in for a site plan and have essentially no concept or no idea of how to proceed. And the idea here would be to simply provide an orientation ahead of time so that when people do come in with an application, it's much further advanced, and the process goes.
A little bit faster.
well, if I'm correct, though, you don't need a site plan for single-family dwelling.
No,
So that's
no,
good right there.
no.
Right.
Kat, do you think, do you still find that to be the case when people come in for site plans? Yeah. And you're not asking people to do things that they would not be asked to do anyhow,
Right, it's not a hardship per se.
ultimately. It really, yeah, it shouldn't be. No, it shouldn't be.
So, On page 3, the top of it, so we would be in 2D. The end of it says, "No statement, comment, or other communication made during this review shall be binding upon any party." And Ian says, "If the applicant makes representations of fact to the planning board which turn out to be lies, the applicant should suffer consequences."
Stop it.
So he would suggest that the sentence be revised to read, "No party is required to make any binding commitments during this review."
Why not just take out the sentence and not even have the sentence? Because if you come in with an application that is totally at variance with what you talked about in your pre-application conference, it's going to come back at you anyway when you come into the actual board with your application. So I'm not sure why you would even
Yeah.
need that,
Yeah.
it seems to me.
So just take out that last sentence?
The no statement.
No
comment.
statement.
I mean,
All right.
we don't want to start putting people in prison here.
Well, I think his consequences might have been a strong word, but he also says in the first sentence of that.
Off with their heads.
He also says in the first sentence of that on page 2, where it says, "The submission shall include an identification of the primary assets and limitations of the property that is subject of the development proposal." He has no idea what limitations of the property means. And maybe it could be explained.
Well, I guess limitation would be in terms of if you want to, gosh, I don't know, if you want to put in an accessory structure and you have a lot of, you see wetlands on your,
I was going to say steep slopes or
or something, or
wetlands.
steep slopes, or, I mean, I can't imagine what other, and you have to work around, I mean, what other limitation would there be?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, you could, if you wanted to, for that sentence, you could simply say for that sentence, "The submission shall include an identification of the property that is the subject of the development," and not even mention assets and limitations. I'm not sure what they really
An
add.
identification of the primary, like,
I mean, I don't see that it adds anything.
I think primary assets, I guess, could include, like, if there are other structures on the property or there are other.
Yeah, I mean, it can be included. I don't think it really says much, but sure, if you want to.
I wasn't confused by limitations of the property.
Oh, okay, fine.
I mean,
All right.
I think limitations of the property could be, what if the size of it would make it difficult
Yeah.
in terms of setbacks, that's a limitation of the property.
Or the shape.
Yeah,
The shape of the
yeah.
lot, sure. Yeah, you could, sure.
He says, quick one, there's a typo on page 3. Under 3C,
One inch equals 400.
he thinks it should say on the third line, within 1,000 feet of its boundary. That's easy.
Okay.
He did mention that critical environmental areas, which is
Next to the last.
capitalized in the next to last line,
Yeah.
is not a defined,
But it is,
it must be, but it's capitalized, which
it's
is weird.
because it's a defined zoning district, CEAs.
Ah,
That's probably why that's why it's capitalized.
but we've never defined it? No, we haven't.
Could be in, well, would what is it called, the historic? See, the historic thing isn't, what's the historic thing called? I forget. Oh, yeah, the ridge line. I would say if you define the ridge line district and so on, you should define, yeah, see, now that one is defined on page 42. So,
Yeah.
So perhaps CEA should be included in definitions
Yeah.
in that case, because they're really the same thing, or same idea, I should say.
That'll be a note for when we get there.
Yeah, actually, you should also, in the same paragraph, the last line, technically it's the ridgeline scenic and historic protection overlay.
District.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might as well.
I'll let Dean catch up here for a minute.
Okay. Let me throw out something on D.
Yeah.
Dean, you okay?
Yeah, go ahead, I can listen.
Historic buildings, or actually buildings in general, are not natural features. So how about we just say list of features? I mean, trees, stone walls, those are natural features. Buildings are not.
And then you have to take it out again later in that paragraph too, if you're gonna take it out.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's true. I hadn't noticed that.
Where is this?
Well, in that case, then you should leave out buildings.
Yeah, I would just take out the buildings.
D,
Yeah.
just say list, and just eliminate historic buildings because, I mean, it's nice to include them, but they're not a natural feature specifically.
You're gonna be in trouble when you go home.
Hopefully she's not watching.
You're right, Russ points out a stone wall isn't a natural feature either.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose you're right. You mean they didn't just sort of happen by themselves? I thought they could.
It's like that historic building, when we built it.
I thought, well, I stand corrected, so I don't know what to tell
We're
you.
taking out stone walls too.
I'd be ashamed to do that.
I think stone walls are somewhat protected if they're property line.
It comes up in several places, stone walls.
That's what I was gonna say, isn't it addressed somewhere else?
If it is a natural border between properties, it's protected,
Then it's
just
safe.
like any other survey marker.
So leave the stone walls?
That's true. That's-
Well, I wouldn't
can't-
say it fits under
Natural features.
natural
but-
features.
Unless you want to take out natural and just say list of features on the parcel, including but limited to, and then,
Oh,
Yeah,
And
that's
you
what
could-
well, that's
that's
what
what
I
we were-
suggested.
we were
But then
going-
you said,
well, but I'm just saying that, but then you just have to remove the same word in the last paragraph, in
oh,
the last
yeah,
sentence.
okay, you could do that. Just take out the word natural.
Right, and then you're still covered, and it would
Fine.
include those buildings
Right.
and things if you want them.
Good deal.
Yeah, I was just pointing out to be consistent. I'm
Okay.
sorry if that was
Right, so
confusing.
you're saying then just take out natural and then put historic buildings back in?
Yeah.
yeah, list of features on the property, including but
Alright.
not limited to. Yeah.
Then
And take out
natural
both
again.
times that it
Both-
occurs in
yeah,
the
both.
paragraph.
Okay.
So in that same paragraph, take this for what you will. As an attorney writing this,
We'll start putting people. in
this
there
and
again.
throughout section 96, change parcel, tract, property, and lot to the word site, S-I-T-E. It is very confusing to use 5 different terms. If in fact a different meaning is intended, that should be made clear. Yep.
Change what? Change.
Like change the words parcel, tract,
Right.
property, lot to the word site.
Why does it have to be site? As opposed to parcel?
It could be parcel, I'm sure.
lot,
He just
I
wants
mean-
it to be the same.
Yeah.
Unless there's a definition. Is there a definition issue? Why it should
He
be
didn't say
site?
that, no.
Oh, okay.
Definitions.
I'm almost there. Site plan.
The site is not defined. Site plan is defined.
What about,
I don't see parcel either.
Nope. What's the other one, lot?
Lot. Yeah.
I see parent parcel.
A lot is defined. So change it to lot in that case. Since lot is here.
which interestingly lists all those words.
Yeah, except it doesn't list site. It does list parcel, but it doesn't include site.
Perhaps we should add site
So
back
maybe
in.
we should add site to the
I
definition.
think we should.
All right.
Which definition is it?
The definition of lot,
Lot.
yeah,
We should add site.
that's site.
Oh, look, we're even doing definitions tonight.
There you go. A piece, parcel, tract, site, or
Or plot of
Or
land.
something like that, yeah.
Jeez, we got a lot of lots.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ian. He's like the demented scientist, you know,
He really is.
in the old movies.
His comment on page 5, 8D, he didn't know that we had an official town newspaper, so that part of his comment, we do. It's fine. But he thinks 5 days' notice is too little, and it should be changed to 10, as is the case, he says, in 2 other sentences in this paragraph.
What is the,
Public notice shall be given by publication in the official.
what does the town do? When the town clerk, when Carol posts
Yeah, I
it?
think she would rather have 5.
I
What's
think
the-
she would, yeah.
What, is there a, what's the public meetings law?
Public
Isn't it-
hearing notice within 62 days.
Isn't that defined? How many days notice?
Yeah, I think it is 5. She does everything by the state law.
Well, it's, yeah, at least. I mean, she could do it more, but it's,
Right.
Yeah,
It's just in the case something came up short-term, you could fit it in as long as you had that 5 days, so.
exactly. There's sometimes what if, you know, I know this isn't planning, but if something comes up at the town board and we're like, we need a meeting, but we have to notice it. If
Yeah.
we need to do it 10 days in advance, that's an issue.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike, on that.
Does that set, then do you want to, would you want to shorten the number of days that the mail has to go out?
the problem is, the planning board, you need extra time for the mail.
Yeah, you do.
Right.
Yeah. So 10 days seems,
Well, they still might not get it these days, but.
that's true.
At least
It's reasonable.
the mail thing is, that's the applicant getting noticed. The newspaper is the world being noticed.
Right.
Right.
It's a difference. Fifth sentence. He was feeling generous that night. Give me a minute. When he wrote this. So the part in that same paragraph where it says at the discretion of the planning board, the requirement for a public
Yeah.
hearing may be waived.
That's true.
I don't know if we care too much.
It doesn't happen very
But,
often.
yeah, he says that maybe it should read at the discretion of the planning board, the requirements of a public hearing may be waived if the planning board believes any adverse impact of the proposed development on the town and the neighbors of the site will be minimal.
I don't,
It would seem
I don't know that it's not.
It would seem self-evident.
Yeah, it seems self-evident to me too. I just want to make sure his comments have full airing. We're halfway through them. Visual conditions of section. Delete incidental. Page 6, E, the very top. He says delete and incidental to, so it would say the planning board shall attach such reasonable conditions and restrictions as are directly related to the proposed site plan. We would take out an incidental to. That makes no difference to me.
No.
So we're gonna take out incidental?
Yeah, I was fine with that.
can we go back to
Yeah.
page 5D, 4D?
Yeah.
So I'm just, the end of that paragraph, it says that they can notice you can send notice to the municipal boundary, the planning board shall notify clerk of the adjoining municipality by public hearing, of the public hearing by mail or electronic transmission.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to put that above for the applicant so that that gives the planning board an option? Or is that
Well, this is a very specific thing.
because of the GML 239?
Yeah, and
then, okay,
this is just a notification to the clerk of the adjoining municipality.
I understand.
I don't know.
They allow for electronic transmission.
They do.
That was my point, is they're allowing it for that.
Okay.
Do we want to make that an option for the planning board, or do we want to just leave well enough
We could
alone?
notify the applicant by electronic, by email.
I think Arlene would say that she'd rather it go certified mail, so
That's
there's
fine.
evidence that it was
Yeah,
sent.
okay, all right.
Yeah,
And then you
which-
have to
yeah,
sign for
that
it.
makes sense.
I agree with that.
All right, good deal.
Should it specify certified mail or not?
Oh, I mean, it's what she does, but
If it's not required by law, then let's not put it in there.
yeah.
No, I wasn't referring to that, I was referring to the applicant, not the neighboring town, but
Yeah.
when she notifies the applicant, should it say certified mail?
Well, I'm just saying, if it's not required by law, then I would.
Oh, I don't know if it is or not, I guess.
I know it's what she does.
Is what she does?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Even for the applicant, not just for the neighbors? That's my question.
Yeah, I got a certified letter
Yeah.
for something.
That you applied for?
I didn't apply for it.
No, the
so I was
neighbor.
a neighbor.
Well, that's what I mean, but what, but this says for the applicant, that's.
They
my
would
question.
get it certified mail.
Would
as
they?
well. Yeah.
Okay, all right, fine, okay.
Because if any of them showed up and just said, well, I didn't get noticed, she wants to say, oh, well, yes, you did.
Right, no, yeah, but I've never seen that happen with an applicant, because obviously they know when they're gonna be up.
Yeah,
on-
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, with neighbors, of course, I understand.
All right.
So in G, on page 6, the decision, in the middle of it, the decision of the planning board shall be expressed in the report to the zoning administrator, which report shall be binding, and it's suggested that we add, but is subject to appeal, as provided below.
May I raise a question on H,
Yeah,
if you're finished with G?
yeah.
Neil changed it, maybe Dean, you can remember, I don't know it. 1 year? Why did he change it to 1 year?
Oh, yeah, I
That's a
noticed that
long-
too. It was a big change from 60
Yeah.
days to 1
I
year.
mean, that's a long time. Why, I don't remember any discussion about that, but of course it's been, how many years since we went over this?
3 or 4.
Yeah, at least, but that seems like a long time, doesn't it? 1 year to allow somebody to revise a site plan?
Well, and then it says at the bottom of that paragraph that they can extend it, so,
For an additional 1 year.
right, so do we need to buy that extra time? Do we need to give them that extra time?
What if we do 6 months and then 6 months? So they get a year total, instead of 2 years total.
I think there was several cases that came in front of the planning board that they got their approval and then they sat on it
Yeah,
and they had to come back. And then they had to go through the whole process all over again, like it was a new application, rather than the extension.
but we don't want to encourage that, right? I mean, we want to encourage people to,
Well, I'm just thinking
Get
about
it done.
instances where something could happen.
Well, what if we made a compromise and did within 6 months of the date of approval and left the end that they can extend it by a year. Because the final one, the planning board gets to decide. Right? They have a
Yes.
hand in extending it.
Well, that's true, yes.
So you've got 6 months, and then if you need the next year, at least the planning board will be in the loop.
And actually, it's up to 1 year, so they don't have to do it for 1 year.
Right.
They could do it for less.
It's just a compromise suggestion. I don't
I like
know.
that.
6 months?
At the beginning, yeah.
Okay, at the beginning.
In that same paragraph,
You want to change it?
our friend here says that there's 2 times where it just says board instead of planning board, and it's for clarity's sake, like, so I know there's one right in the middle,
Yeah,
and there's one in the very last line. It should probably say planning board.
We should also change chairman,
And he says chairman to
Okay.
chairperson,
or just chair, whichever.
or chair.
Yeah, either one. Yeah. Oh, he got that, huh?
And that was in I as well.
Yeah, next line down, sure, yeah.
It's in J.
Can I mention something in I? If you're still, are you
Yeah,
still,
yeah.
still working on, okay. The last line of the page. Approval shall be terminated if construction and use as approved is not commenced within 18 months. Okay. I would say construction or. Construction and use are not the same. So I think the original version simply said construction. And he added use as approved. But I think in that case, you'd have to say construction or use.
what, give me an example of when the use could be done without the construction.
Well, no, it's actually the other way around. In other words, if we start building something
Right,
and it's not finished, but we've started construction, and that, within 18 months, okay, that would be okay. If we finish it, it's fine. Then we're in it, we're done. So it's the reverse of what you're saying. Especially nowadays, if it takes so long to get things done with supplies and whatnot.
Yeah, but the way I'm reading it is that if the approval shall terminate
Right.
if construction or, and I don't think it's or, construction and the use as approved.
Well, in that case, you don't need construction. You would
But I'm
just say
saying,
construction,
if you're,
it's use.
yeah,
You don't need construction. I mean, to me, construction means you're in the process of building it, but you haven't finished yet,
okay.
and so you can't use it. If the idea is use,
Sometimes it gets specially described just for use, not like, you could actually have a use.
Yeah, I was thinking of that.
Like construction.
so then just leave out construction, right?
well,
Just
no,
say-
This is just clarifying that, I think.
you need both, because it could be construction and it could be just use.
Yeah.
Right, correct?
But how would that be and?
Yeah, so it could be and or.
Or?
That's a good.
And or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The next page in J, the only comment was where it says, no site plan approval shall be issued for a property upon which there is an existing zoning violation. You would like to change it to an existing violation of this chapter.
Why?
It's technical, but
Why?
Yeah,
well, zoning violation would only apply to this chapter, because this is the zoning code we're talking about. So it should, do you think it should say existing violation?
As opposed to, what did he say?
He said a violation of this chapter. just to make it clear.
An existing violation.
Yeah.
That chapter is.
Well, that's the same thing, sure.
Yeah, what his suggestion is doesn't change the meaning at all.
As long
It
as,
just makes it, it's a clarity issue.
as long as existing is in there.
I
Yeah.
see his as,
Okay.
as more of a problem because he's saying a property that violates any section of this, but the thing is, what if it's pre-zoning?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah,
it's not a violation.
Then it's not a violation,
violation.
but it's a violation of this
it
chapter.
is a violation of this chapter.
Well, yeah.
So in J, it says existing violations, no site plan approval shall be issued for a property upon which there is an existing zoning violation unless the application for site plan approval is intended to bring the property into compliance with this chapter. The change that has been requested is, no site plan approval shall be issued for a property upon which there is an existing violation of this chapter unless the application for site plan approval is intended, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but what about the building code and stuff?
I think we should take out zoning, honestly,
I was about to say, how about existing
upon
violation?
which there is an existing violation.
Existing violation, and not
I think that's the intent,
leave out zoning?
yeah. Yeah,
No, you gotta come to Mike.
I think the biggest change is the second part of the sentence that talks about bringing the property into compliance with the chapter.
Yeah, right.
And I wonder if that's really broad, if this should be only applicable if that is the only action to bring the property in compliance. You know, if somebody's running a short-term rental illegally for a very long time, and then they come in, should they be allowed to continue running the short-term rental while trying to get approval for the short-term rental?
No.
No. So if they have a use that's not permitted, should they be allowed to continue it? That's an example. So I think there should be some sort of level of burden to be able to continue the violation or fix the violation through the application. That should be the only action.
But there
But
are,
should-
there are violations.
You gotta come to the mic, Arlene.
I can't, I mean, you could change this.
Hide yourself.
But is that not the
We only see
plan?
from your coat up. We only see from the coat up.
Brandon, focus the camera from the code up.
Don't put me on.
Besides, now
Blur
everybody,
the view.
Arlene, we would have never known that.
exactly, now everybody
Now we're
knows.
all looking.
I wasn't planning on coming. I was saying, what about, there are, stuff, let's say, somebody put, a building in the setback, so it's in violation. But the only way to correct the violation is to go before.
I'm saying if it's the only way to do it, then you should be allowed to. But if it's not the only way to do it, you should not be allowed to continue the violation while you're trying to fix it through the application. So if you're running an illegal Airbnb, you should not continue be renting it while trying to get it legal.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
you have to remove
So-
the violation.
But wouldn't-
Okay, what if you have if you have a building in the setback, that means you have to take all the stuff and stop using it out of the building? Well, I don't follow that.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a garage in the setback, and then you're applying for a variance or what have you. You can't use the garage during the process, is that,
No, it shouldn't have a CO, but,
is that the issue?
so if you don't have a CO, well, how could you use the building anyway? So we have an instance, just in the past year, where someone put up a garage too close to the property line.
Oh, it happens all the time.
And they were told they didn't get the exception, and so therefore, they gotta take the building down.
Or pick it up and move it.
Literally.
Yeah.
Does if you wanted to address the issue of continuing the violation during the process, does that need to be detailed out here, or is that something that the planning board can address?
Well, typically, the planning board does not hear cases that have current violations. You have to cure the violation before you can move forward. Certainly, there's cases where you can't cure it without having a hearing.
Right.
So you have to solve the problem.
And that's what this is talking about, right, this paragraph?
I think the way this is written, and it's in multiple places, basically means that nobody will ever ask for anything until they get caught. That's going to be the implication.
Well, that's what usually happens anyway.
Yeah.
You don't need anything until you get caught, and then you say, oh, sorry, now I'm going to apply for anything.
Well, nothing's ever a problem until you get caught. Nothing's ever a problem until you get caught.
Basically, the way it's written is going to make the zoning code completely new until somebody gets caught.
Right, but if the zoning inspector or the building inspector happens to be driving by and sees someone building something that they don't have a permit for, they're caught. I mean, that's what happens, or the neighbor gets ticked off, which usually is the case, and they report you.
But if the penalty is higher, they're gonna be,
Well, that's a different section.
Yeah, but I mean, you could argue that that's the case now anyway,
So what does he want us to do? What does Ian want us to do?
He wants us
just
to
changed it
take
to
out one
existing
word.
violation.
That was it?
Yeah. Well, that's what we did.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's what we did.
Um,
Well, but, so how do you get around this problem?
I think we go back to what was before,
You go back to
what it was before.
what it was before. Well, before it was nothing. It was added.
Well, before you just had this, you have,
You gotta talk up here.
yeah,
Sorry,
this is
Ken.
important, so you gotta go up here.
You're gonna go back to the previous
I mean,
paragraph, I think.
basically, all we did was to remove the word zoning. So it says an existing
No, I think
violation.
she wants Jay
no,
to
I
come
think
out.
there's I think it's 250-107, and then within the planning, I mean, I think it's in multiple places. It's in the planning board section, it's in the, special use permit section, it's in the site plan section. Essentially, nothing can be issued unless, while they're in violation. No special, That's what it's done, yeah.
But what if you need something to correct the violation? What do you do then?
This
If you
is
say to an
applicable-
applicant, we're not going to listen to your application, even though it's meant to correct a violation because you have a violation.
Well, this is applicable to
What do you do?
special use permits, right? Subdivisions.
So, I mean, here's how it would read, is existing violations, no site plan approval shall be issued for a property upon which there is an existing, took out zoning and put violation, unless the applicant for the site plan approval is intended to bring the property into compliance with this chapter. Now, the only thing maybe I would add in it would be as per agreement with the planning board or the building inspector or something else. Add that in there, because then that would kind of address that they're not allowed to continue the operation unless they got that extra, okay, do this and that'll get you to where you want to be.
I think that's a reasonable thing as per the agreement, with either the planning board, or I guess it would have to be the building inspector, the zoning enforcement officer to, authorize, say, hey, look, this is just not you're gonna have to use some sort of discretion because it is both of them go hand in hand.
I mean,
I think it should be the only course of action, only viable course of action should be to be allowed to do that.
the only other alternative is what Dean said, where you actually have somebody take down the building and get their permission and then rebuild it. Or not, as the case might be, like this gentleman you're referring to.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, they went through the process, and yeah, so the building stayed through the process until it said, okay, it's got to come down, right? So I think Dean has the right answer.
you can't just say, oh, I'm going to bring it into compliance. Well, you can't keep on using it if you're going to bring it to compliance unless you've already gotten the approval from, let's say, the building inspector or somebody else that has basically come out and said, it's a technicality, it's not a safety issue, so maybe we'll allow that,
Again, I think the short notice is a good example. Like, are you gonna allow people renting the properties while they're trying
No.
to fix the violation?
They shouldn't.
No, they
They
shouldn't.
shouldn't. They shouldn't, no, they shouldn't be allowed to.
Well, didn't we give like a leeway when we first introduced the short-term rental?
When we
So-
first introduced the law, and now it's been
Well,
since
yeah,
November of
it's-
2020, they had 6 months to
That's-
apply to the board. So
So that was.
that's gone now.
No, that's my point. So it was given, when the introduction of the law, there was a leeway, as long as you put the application down, why this was going on to get people in compliance, that they had to start.
It's just an example, right?
Yeah.
No, I know that, but we gave an option for it, now it's beyond that.
Just like right now, so all of them are coming forward and calling and everything, so, well, they have to remove the listing first before they could be heard,
Uh-huh.
before they could go before the planning board. It's like freeze, you gotta remove your listing.
yeah,
Oh,
but-
but there's a question about those people who rented their property further advanced, like until June. So they were like, what are we gonna do? So how would they correct their violation? It's already being rented until June.
It's also
Not
more
being
than,
rented,
it's
it's-
also more than an issue of removing a
Oh,
listing.
reservation.
Arlene, she's talking about use. Removing a listing and use are different things. You can remove a listing and continue renting your property.
Yeah.
Well, that, especially
Just
if
not
it's
tell
already
anybody.
rented till June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fact that you removed the listing only
Yeah,
goes
but
so
you're still
far.
violating the
Yeah,
rule.
yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah. So my point is, it should not be as simple as to just come and ask for a permit once you've been caught doing something, right? But the way it's written now, anybody will be allowed to go through the process and apply
Right.
for fixing of a violation just by applying to fix a violation.
The two of you are talking about the specific of Airbnb. This refers to more than just that. And so, in my opinion, you should not be able to continue that particular use only for the fact that they may never get approval. I mean, the septic may not be adequate, the fire safety may not be adequate. There's many things that may not be adequate. So that particular use, I would say you should not be. That's why I was saying with the approval of the appropriate department or agency, you know, maybe we can make an exception, but, you know, not to have that approval, there may be circumstances where you should not allow that use to continue.
Right, and these articles apply to special uses and site plans as related to special uses. This is not about, you know, someone fixing their bathroom and now you make them undo the bathroom fix, right? This is not that. This is about special uses, subdivisions, site plans. So it's a very particular,
Right, but you're naming one specific
yeah,
item.
as an example. just to make
But
it
I'm
real.
saying, you know, it's a little more broad than that.
Yeah.
But Dean's addition should be able to fix
It's saying that you can't use it unless you have the approval.
your
Yeah.
issue and still not create an issue for the guy whose garage is too close to the
Yeah.
property line, and they may just be granted a variance, right? That should fix both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, it should be the only viable way to do it, as opposed to, again, people just doing whatever they want, and then, once they get caught,
Right.
asking for forgiveness, right? So,
Ask for forgiveness, then permission.
So you want to add a couple words at the end, Dean, about consultation with whomever? Is that what you're suggesting?
I guess the building inspector?
Or the zoning
I like
officer?
what
Or
you
the
said,
zoning enforcer?
you said that the appropriate agency or,
I don't know if we want to be more specific, because who's the appropriate agency? But
well, that's why
I do leave a lot of things open that way, but
you want to be more specific in this part, in this instance.
Yeah, because what if it's a basic permit?
Yeah.
I guess I can just use approval by the appropriate agency. Because I guess it would be depending on the circumstances.
Right, because there might be different, it could be a different department. Correct?
All right, I got a couple of easy ones. Under appeals, the word planning board's interpretation should be determination. That's right under what we were just talking
Oh,
about.
appeals, oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Planning board's determination.
Determination? Right.
Instead of interpretation?
Yeah.
Determination of any provision?
Any disagreement with the planning board's determination of any provision of this chapter may be appealed to the zoning board of appeals? Yeah.
No, I don't think
Yeah, I
so.
don't think he's right on that.
No?
Does he mean chapter or does he mean section?
I think he means chapter.
Chapter is like the whole damn thing.
Yeah, but all of that can be appealed to the zoning board
yeah,
of appeals. I
absolutely.
mean, it's a true statement.
Yeah, well, yeah. But it's also, I suspect it's also written under the section on the ZBA that they do interpretations, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, you know, I think interpretation is correct. The planning board makes recommendations for the zoning board when it comes in there. At that point, it's a recommendation, either it's a positive, neutral, or negative recommendation. So that's not a determination, it's more of an interpretation.
well, except when it comes to site plans, the ZBA doesn't do site.
Well,
plans.
that's correct. You're right. When the site plans, that's different. But if we're talking for appeals specific to, because the ZBA wouldn't get the site plan, for a site plan.
But since the section deals with site plans,
That's correct.
so, right? Isn't the section, I forget what the title
Site
is.
plan review, yeah.
Yeah, so normally that, unless there was an issue, the ZBA wouldn't even hear those on the site plan review or special use permit.
So does that even need to,
Yes, it does even apply here.
right,
Should
should it be
included.
removed?
Unless he says, well, I don't know, unless he means section rather than chapter, I don't know.
Well, regardless of what he meant, does that K need to be there?
Oh, does it need to be there at all?
Yeah,
Yes.
Well, I was
since
just,
they don't do site plans.
well, no, I suppose not. I was just looking ahead to see where we have a section on the zoning board here somewhere, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way, if
But leaving it doesn't change anything.
even if it doesn't change anything, but what if, so the site plan, so if there's a disagreement with the site plan, how would the applicant go back up to appeal that? They would have to go, I guess it would have to go to the ZBA, and then at that point, either they're gonna do, because they can turn around, they gotta be able to get a negative outcome from the ZBA to end up going to an Article 78 to, bring charge against the town to try to correct their problem. So the site plan, I think, can be interpreted. I don't think we've had a case with that, but if they didn't, there's got to be an appeal process to the planning board. The planning board, like I said, the ZBA is a necessity in the town. The planning board is not.
Except, here's what it says.
In our code, we have it.
Here's what it says under the ZBA. Zoning Board of Appeals shall refer to and receive recommendations from the planning board on all applications for variances and changes of non-conforming uses. Doesn't say anything about site plans, it doesn't say anything about special use permits.
So the question is, how would they appeal?
I don't know. I've never known a case where it's happened, but I suppose
No,
it could.
neither have I.
Yeah, but it could, I suppose.
So
I don't
does it-
know.
I would
Arlene,
just leave it.
Arlene, what would you say? No.
I guess that's only,
What would you say?
that only refers to site plan, right? Because it says this chapter. So,
Chapter is the whole thing,
Chapter's the
the whole zoning
yeah, but
law. Section is the site plan.
Yeah, but if you look at this is section of chapter A, 250, that's 96, and then letter is that?
So,
Yeah, so it refers just chapter, particularly to site plan.
so,
If you look,
so chapter, the term chapter means all of 250.
The chapter is the whole thing.
So maybe we should
Change it to section,
Well, that's what I said before.
yes.
Change it to section. What happens if somebody doesn't like, if the planning board turned down an application for a special use permit or a site plan, what is the recourse for the applicant?
Everything, the ZBA is the highest authority. So anything, if the applicant disagreed about any approval, they want to challenge it, they go to the ZBA.
Even if it's for
Yeah,
a
site plan, whatever it is,
Well, then that
yes.
should be spelled out in the zoning board
So
section.
they're like the
because it's not.
quasi judicial.
Okay, well, I guess you're right then. I'd never heard of it.
So we
but,
should
yeah.
change that to section though.
But then, and then what,
Yeah, because it covers everything anyway, it wouldn't matter.
But
Yeah.
where's the other section that we have, where's the,
We haven't gotten there yet.
okay,
So,
good.
so the question,
That's
would you, Arlene, would you consider that as the planning board's interpretation or determination?
It's a determination because they
Okay.
will, and then when it goes to the ZBA, it becomes interpretation. If
Okay.
you're challenging the section.
I'll buy that.
Then I
Would
just
change
don't-
the word to determination.
I think that's the answer. Hearing it that way, I would agree with that.
Hey, where, K?
Yeah,
Letter K?
yeah.
We're back, hold on, I gotta cross this out again.
Determination? Yeah. Of any provision of this section.
Of this, well, we can change, you can keep a chapter because it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I guess not.
Grammar, I don't like the grammar again, sorry.
It seems odd, but
It doesn't work. I
Doesn't
know, I
sound right.
understand the point, and I'm not arguing the point. I just don't think it's,
So, any disagreement with the planning board's determination regarding any provision of this chapter may be appealed to the zoning board of appeals?
I still think it should be a section. I mean, because I don't see how.
Or section, that's
Yeah.
fine. But I
yes,
just,
it's provision that's bothering me. That's that word. Oh, you want to change section into chapter to section, that's what you're talking about?
yeah, that doesn't really matter though.
Well,
But
isn't the chapter, the chapter's 250?
Yes, it's the whole zoning code.
So, and then everything else, well, technically, like I said, if there's an outcome with that affects it, it goes to, and Arlene's right.
You don't even need this in that
You
case.
have, the zoning board of appeals is a quasi
Take the whole thing
judicial,
out.
and at the top, that has the determination on it, or if you want to say interpretation
So-
of it and
are we
determine.
back to removing this then?
We're back to removing it because this is just a true statement and we lay that out in the section on the
ZBA.
zoning board of
ZBA.
appeals.
Okay, great.
That you can appeal anything in this chapter to the zoning board of appeals. So
Okay.
this
So it
K
can come out.
doesn't even need to be there.
So it's basically, it's redundant is really what
It
it
is.
is.
Deleting all the K?
Yes.
Yes,
All right. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of black ink here.
yeah. But now we can just cross it all out.
All right,
Bye-bye.
So I got an easy one.
another one.
I think we should have a,
Last time.
I
pajama
thought so.
party on the next meeting
thought
here.
this was the easy
We're going late, you know?
We're trying to get, I'm so
Like in
close
school,
to the
right?
end of this page here.
There you go.
Is that
So
what the goal is?
C2, right below it, it's all about vicinity maps, but in the very last sentence it says, such a sketch may be superimposed. The word sketch should be map, like it is in the whole rest of the
Yeah,
paragraph.
fine, okay. We'll give
Okay.
that,
That's an easy one, right?
okay, we'll give that
Yep.
one to Ian.
Um,
That's a freebie for Ian.
So, C2 on page 7, in the last sentence it uses the word sketch, it should be map, because the whole rest of the paragraph talks about maps. Page 8 at the very top, letter C, the location of structures and used,
Uses, should be uses, no?
I'll read the whole thing.
Yeah, okay.
Location of structures, I think it's supposed to be the location of structures used on adjacent properties within 100 feet of the subject lot line, but
Could go either way. Let's see what it says here.
Intended use of shall be prescribed.
Okay, should include the following information, location of structures and, or,
The end's gotta come out.
I think it's the end that comes out, right?
well, yeah, I don't know, could be either one, so.
The location of
Doesn't matter.
structures used on an adjacent property within 100 feet.
Or
of
it could,
the
it could mean the location of structures and their uses. That's, but whatever, doesn't matter, it's the same thing. Ultimately, it comes out the,
So we take out the word and.
fine.
Yeah.
Well, we normally just want to know the location and laying out the setback. So, as it says, within 100 feet of the subject of the lot line.
Yeah. So the location of structures on adjacent properties, we can take out and used.
Just remove
Yeah.
that.
You could take,
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Take out and use.
What was the one before that you had?
This one.
Yeah, I
should
had
just
that
say
map.
And then this was
Oh, I
just,
thought you had something else
oh,
down
no,
there.
no.
Oh.
And then it would be and used gets taken out.
And in use?
Yeah. No listation metro is required. Okay, yeah, the next one, let's see what he says. Location boundaries are
let me see.
Buildings and?
The location of structure, well, where you. E3F.
Okay, so in this 3F,
3?
yeah, it's on page 8.
Different place.
Building and.
Location and boundaries of natural features.
Yeah,
Okay.
there, just trying to read it. So he thinks this whole list of things, watercourses, wetlands, floodplain, and soil types, rock outcrops, he thinks that list should just copy what's in resource analysis of B3, C, and D.
So to just reference it instead of listing the list, say resource.
Oh, yeah, we could just say the location and boundaries of pertinent natural features that may influence the design of the proposed use, such as those listed in B3, C, and D,
Yeah, why not?
Something like that.
and then they would match.
You mean instead of repeating them all?
Yeah, well, yeah, because they don't repeat the same things.
Oh, they don't? Okay. All right. Well, the ones in,
We're on C, 3, F,
what you're talking about
as
this
in
here?
Frank.
Yeah, C and
This
D,
one?
these.
Oh, these, okay. Okay.
So how do we want to rewrite this?
So it would just say, location and boundaries of pertinent natural features that may influence the design of the proposed use, such as those listed in B3, C, and D. And then the rest of the sentence can go.
In 3B, C, and D.
Yeah. I don't know that we care, but down below in J, it ends with buildings and structures. He says structures does not need to be there because a building implies a structure. Proposed buildings, whatever. We can delete it, we can leave it, I don't really care.
Well, it's your pleasure.
Let's delete it, sure. It's not gonna take anything off our back. And then there's only one more note he has, I gotta find it.
D6B.
Yep. Oh, you have it.
Oh.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I got the whole list.
Oh, okay.
I just had it mixed in with all the other papers he sent me.
D6?
6B, it's on page 11.
Yeah.
D6B, oh, wait, no, it's further than that. It's on page 12. Add for the town after materials.
What, 6B? Is that what-
Materials shall have good
D6B.
architectural
Under
character.
building design?
Materials shall have good architectural character and shall be selected for harmony with traditional building materials. So he thinks it should say materials shall have good architectural character and shall be selected for harmony with traditional building materials for the town.
We don't have an architectural
We don't.
drawing.
So this is what, 6D?
Yeah.
6B.
Oh, 6B materials. So that's subjective, architectural
Yeah.
character, good architectural character. That's a subjective term. Harmony with traditional build.
Well, this whole section is, I found interesting. Because you're starting to dictate what people.
Yeah, I don't like that. That's correct.
Well, even just. Does this mean you can't have a modern house in the town of Clinton?
Yeah, but are we going to force everybody to have to go for a waiver?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, and first of all, what you think is good architectural, you get 3 different architects in here, and they're gonna have 3 different design, modern to contemporary to historic, right?
And if you look, I mean, not to belabor the point, but if you look at D, like, I drive down the road and tell me how many houses that's true for. I don't.
Oh, D, mechanical equipment such as air conditioners, satellite dishes. I don't know if we really see too many satellite dishes anymore, but utility hardware, roofs, ground, screen,
Well, we changed that code with satellite dishes that if they're not in use, they have to be removed.
yeah.
Right. But, so I don't know.
Yeah, if you hadn't done that, I was gonna paint a big happy face on the one that I had.
Well, I think you're trying to maintain the character, the
Yeah.
country character.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and are the rules for hamlets and historical districts, they are more stringent, right? That's already, those
We did
rules
this at the very
exist,
beginning of zoning revision.
right? So why do we have it here? Why are we restricting people's design choices in the entire town? If the historical areas and hamlets have already been addressed.
I mean, you show me, go around this town and say, just for, we're talking mechanical equipment such as air conditioners, how many people have them screened in?
Well, I mean, we are talking about new things, so my point was not necessarily particularly,
No, I'm just using that as an example, right? So, I mean, and what do you consider proper screening? Someone says putting bushes up against them and restricting them, or putting a fence on a mechanical air conditioner, they need some space to breathe, and I see people, when they do that, and service, as a service standpoint, I can tell you it's a pain in the butt.
so, but the question is, does this have a place in this?
I think that's
Law.
an appropriate question, because we've already dealt with this in hamlets. We've dealt with this in residential hamlet district. I don't know what section it is.
And as long as
And
a
then,
historical
and then it's
area,
added in again and kind of applies to the whole town. I don't understand either why we dealt with it earlier for specific districts, or then if we did that, why would we deal with it here for everything?
I think it's like those solar panel. You don't want it to be like an eyesore. So
Sure.
you're trying to screen it.
Yes, but that's in
Within
the
our
solar law.
Yeah, in solar law, it's
yeah.
determined already that there's screening and everything in that.
who gets to decide?
It's very arbitrary, I would say. Good architectural character as determined by who?
All comes up to the planning board, the planning board, that's
Yeah, but
going
they
to.
always say, well, that's what it says in the code, the screen, to make the character of the neighborhood. It's spelled out there, and that's what they're.
Well, again, this has not been changed, so this is existing code.
This is existing, yeah.
I particularly don't like it,
Let's take it
and I
out.
would have the whole thing removed as far as design, because it should be applied elsewhere in the code, not necessarily on the site plan dictating what you have to do on the site plan.
And it should go a little more specific with options rather than being subjective.
I mean, like Part E, exterior lighting, that's dealt with somewhere else.
There is lighting.
We have a lighting code.
So, yeah.
We deal with screening in almost every section where somebody's building things.
My vote is to take, because it's already been, most of the stuff's already been, addressed, is take out that section 6 there.
Best thing to remember is you don't need a site plan for a single house.
I mean, as it is, lighting was all removed.
And the previous one, wasn't it? Because it's already, was
Russell's got her
referenced in there.
one-track.
Both landscaping and lighting were removed, and they referenced the section.
The section, yeah.
Right.
Wait, you removed the lighting for the site plan?
No.
No,
In
it
this
just
section
says
of
lighting
the
shall be in
plan.
conformity with 250-61A, because there was a whole section on lighting, so we just changed it to. Same with landscaping.
All right, so far we got 2 for remove this section, right, Dean? Is that where you're at?
I would remove the whole section.
2, 3, done. Remove. We got 3 on here, done.
I didn't disagree. I didn't disagree.
I'm just trying to speed
We
things
know
up
that.
under-
Apparently Chris needs to go home.
That's my philosophy.
Outbuilding design review?
Yes.
Whole number 6.
Because it's dealt with in other places. And I remember when we dealt with it. It took a while. I don't think we should relitigate it. That's all I got. Does anybody else have something for this section? Going once, twice. Are you good, Dean?
Where we at?
Yep. So, seeing how it's 10 o'clock tonight,
Yeah. I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Well, the next meeting will be the 16th,
Yes.
7 PM, and we'll continue from here and reference anything that we've already just done, if we need to go back, because there were some things that we skipped over.
Start with 97?
Yeah, we generally start each meeting with what we did previously, and then we'll move on.
So that meeting I won't be here. The 16th, I think, is the third week. Is
Well,
that
then let's
correct?
see what Chris likes.
No, you got, you know, well, you know the one, so I'm just asking.
We'll deal with that whole half acreage thing.
I'm gonna ask the board to hold off the next meeting on that. Oh, Dean, I thought you were my friend, buddy.
All right, so I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion adjourned. Thank you. You won't be here? Oh my God, this is gonna be a great meeting.
Wait, if Russ can't be here and I can't be here, I think we should